Chapter 1293. Everyone, I'll give you the Yin-Yang Genesis Energy Cauldron. I only want the other items on him. As he gazed at the figures giving off powerful auras, chilliness surged in Yukai's eyes from atop Purgatory Peak. Yukai clearly understood that it was impossible for him to withstand the combined attacks of so many people. At this juncture, he could only give up on a divine object like the Yin-Yang Genesis Energy Cauldron. However, the axe-wielding Ba Meng merely let out an icy chuckle. Hehe, Yukai, you're quite the schemer. That Chu brat has already taken away all the treasures behind the Death Gate. With so many people here, how can a single Yin-Yang Genesis Energy Cauldron be enough to deal with us? To be honest, I'm more interested in the profound Slayer's Divine Lightning. Divine Lightning. Upon hearing these words, a bright light flashed in the eyes of everyone present. Everyone knew that the Divine Lightning was a gorgeous blue. On the other hand, the lightning power released by Chu Hen was a bewitching purple. In particular, the destructive power of the purple lightning had stunned everyone gathered in the ancient city. On top of that, everyone thought that Chu Hen had already taken all the treasures behind the door of death for himself. In the eyes of the crowd, Chu Hen was akin to a moving treasure trove. Yukai's attempt to give up on the Yin-Yang Genesis Energy Cauldron to obtain other items was naturally displeasing. Humph, I captured him and I don't want the Yin-Yang Genesis Energy Cauldron. What else do you want? Shouted Yukai in a stern voice, his tone filled with displeasure. Ba Meng was not afraid. His 2-meter-tall frame was akin to a small giant. Heh, trying to compete in volume? You can't compare to me without the few of us. How could you possibly capture him? My patience is very limited. Yukai's expression gradually darkened. Ha 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 ha, do you think I'm afraid of you? Eat my axe. Ba Meng leapt into the air, his axes raised high as a torrential and domineering aura rose. Roar, a ferocious and mighty giant white tiger suddenly appeared around him. The divine tiger's strength, which could split the heavens and split the earth, gathered in Ba Meng's arms. Suddenly, the sky lost its color as wind and lightning moved together. There seemed to be dark electric arcs flickering around Ba Meng's body. The astonishing power caused the surrounding space to fluctuate rhythmically. Seeing this scene, the people behind him stopped in their tracks and stopped to watch. Yukai was not the slightest bit afraid when faced with the menacing Ba Meng. He leaped up from the black purgatory peak below him and condensed a single palm in the air. The true yuan within his body seemed to surge out like a surging wave. The mighty and majestic palm momentum whizzed toward Ba Meng. The momentum of the sky was like a storm, and tsunamis stacked up. Humph! Ba Meng sneered disdainfully. Then, he swung his axe, which contained the power of thousands of thunderbolts. Break! Boom! A sky-severing axe light was like a rainbow that pierced through the heavens, directly splitting apart the vast and mighty palm energy. The spectacular scene was like a wave that had been split apart, with the middle being split into two. Ba Meng relied on the powerful axe light to chase up. The giant white tiger phantom behind him let out a terrifying roar. The tyrannical and ferocious might was unstoppable. Yukai's eyes were filled with cold fury. Ba Meng, I'll settle the score with you today. Heh, I have the same intention. As his words fell, Ba Meng, who had rushed in front of Yukai, swung his heavy axe horizontally. Together with a crescent arc of light, the sharp edge of the axe headed straight for the other party's head. Yukai coldly smiled. As he twisted his body to the side, he flipped his hand and reached for the other party's wrist. Ba Meng looked sturdy and cumbersome, but in reality, there was a finesse in his roughness. He deliberately stretched out his hand to allow the other party to grab his right arm. Then, the heavy axe in his left hand directly chopped down toward Yukai's head. However, Yukai was no fool. He suddenly exerted force on the wrist that grabbed Ba Meng's right arm. The other party's sturdy right arm, which was like a dragon's arm, was actually forcibly dragged up by Yukai, and blocked the position where the heavy axe was chopping down. Everyone was startled. This Yu-Kai was really crafty and strange. When Ba Meng's axe came down, he would first have to chop off his own arm before it could hit Yu-Kai, exchanging an arm for the other party's life. If it wasn't a life-and-death feud, no one would do such a thing. Whoosh! As the heavy axe chopped down, Ba Meng's expression also changed slightly. There was a slight tremor in the air. The sharp blade of the axe suddenly stopped at a place where it was almost a gap between Ba Meng's fingers. Hee. Yu-Kai laughed strangely, pleased with himself. You can't bear to part with an arm, right? Ba Meng's eyes darkened. Scram! The power of the divine tiger erupted in anger. A white cyclone of steam surged out of his body. Ba Meng forcibly broke free from the other party's grasp. He swung his two axes, one on the left and one on the right, with the intention of chopping Yu-Kai in half. Die. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to kill me. Yu-Kai quickly retreated. He pushed out a majestic force with both palms. When the two forces met, a wave of air immediately rose to the sky. Along with the surging aftermath that swept in all directions, both of them retreated. The deadly swordsman, Yang Ping, held his sword with one hand. He glanced at the black mountain below and calmed himself down. Then, his eyes turned cold. He suddenly shouted, "Stop fighting. You've all been fooled." What? The two arrogant people couldn't help but be stunned. The others were also stunned. Before they could react, Yang Ping's figure flashed. He moved on his sword and chased after the few peaks in front of him. Yu-Kai's eyes turned to the side. He immediately reached down with one hand. An invisible rhythm of space overlapped. The black mountain that was hundreds of meters wide floated on the ground and rose again. The rolling stones on both sides of the broken mountain kept sliding down. However, what was surprising was that there was nothing under the mountain. Chu Hen, who was originally sealed and suppressed under the mountain, was nowhere to be seen. A half-meter-wide hole could be vaguely seen under the ground. Escaped? Yu-Kai's pupils shrank. He was shocked and angry. Ha 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 ha! Ba Meng sneered loudly. I thought this purgatory peak was very capable. The people under it didn't even know they had escaped. Ha 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 ha! I don't want to play with you anymore. You no longer have the right to speak. After speaking, Ba Meng immediately chased after Yang Ping. The others followed closely behind, afraid that they would be left behind. Bastard! Yu-Kai's knuckles cracked as he watched the duck that was already in his hands fly away. A wave of anger rushed to his heart. Humph, let's see how far you can run. Swish, swish, swish. At this very moment, in the depths of an incomparably lush and dense forest, Chu Hen was rapidly flashing through the forest like a spirit. The sound of rushing wind continuously rang out behind him. The crowd was like a pack of wolves that had smelled blood, relentlessly chasing after him. You're not going to fight? Emo Qingli's slightly puzzled voice sounded from within Chu Hen's body. Almost. Things that are too easily obtained will always arouse suspicion. The more I run, the more they will believe that I have the yin-yang Genesis energy cauldron, and the further I go, the more they will believe that there is nothing valuable left in the ancient city. Hee, you're making me look at you in a new light. It's all right. Then how long are you going to wait? What time? Chu Hen faintly nodded, a cold light flashing in his deep eyes. When I have nowhere else to go. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud bang exploded in the forest in front of him as a thick and surging aura rushed towards him like a giant wave. A black mountain emitting an endless fiendish aura crushed a patch of trees, blocking in front of Chu Hen with an insurmountable momentum. Humph, cunning thing, where do you think you're going? A figure emitting a fiery aura flew down from the top of the black mountain, flashing in front of Chu Hen. It was Yu-Kai. At the same time, a series of sharp sword chi whizzed through the air. Dozens of towering trees were blasted to smithereens by beams of sword chi that resembled divine light. Sword chi roamed like a dragon as Yang Ping held his sword to the left. You want to leave just like that? I'm afraid you're looking down on us too much. As soon as he finished speaking, a ferocious white tiger suddenly rushed out from the right. Its violent power was like a nebula exploding, causing dust to fly everywhere. Ba Meng, who held 2 axes in his hands, approached menacingly. Surnamed Chu, you have nowhere else to go. Hand over all the treasures in your possession, and I'll spare your life. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The other geniuses and powerhouses from various sects chased after him. Numerous figures that emitted a cold and sharp aura immediately spread out in the forest, completely sealing off all of Chu Hen's escape routes. The air was filled with a cold and stern aura. The tense atmosphere was at daggers drawn, giving people the chaotic feeling that a cornered beast was about to fight. However, the cornered beast, that was surrounded by everyone, didn't have the slightest bit of fear. His cold eyes swept across the surrounding people as the corners of his mouth curled up. Why bother? I don't want to start a massacre. Massacre. The 2 cold words were like fine needles that pierced the ears, causing people's hearts to tremble faintly. However, they quickly regained their composure. I was almost scared by you. I don't believe that you have the ability to defeat so many of us. Everyone attack together. Let's kill him first before slowly discussing how to split the treasures. That's right, kill. Kill. In everyone's eyes, Chu Hen was like a small treasure vault. Not only did he have the yin-yang Genesis Chi Cauldron and many other treasures hidden behind the Death Gate, he even had the mysterious killer Divine Lightning and other natural treasures. Greed surged in everyone's hearts as traces of blood-red light appeared in their eyes. One after another, figures rushed towards Chu Hen like sharp swords, fiercely attacking him from all sides. Ba Meng, Yang Ping and Yu Kai, the 3 apex geniuses that had the strength to challenge the wind and cloud list, led the charge, attacking Chu Hen from 3 different directions. You have nowhere to retreat. Why aren't you surrendering? The deadly swordsman Yang Ping slashed out with his sword. Tens of thousands of phantoms converged on his sword as a flowing aura pulsed with astonishing power. The deadly divine sword headed straight for Chu Hen's throat. Ba Meng raised his axes high as the tiger silhouette behind him opened its mouth and roared. In the face of the deadly and powerful attacks, Chu Hen's pupils narrowed slightly as dazzling lightning flashed within his eyes. Ta! Chu Hen's palms came together as a terrifying aura comparable to a nebula explosion swept out from his body. Purple lightning, 1,000 lightning escape. Clang! Divine lightning interweaved, causing the sky to fall and the earth to crack. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning pierced through the heavens like divine punishment from the heavens. With Chu Hen at the center, they spread in all directions. The rapidly scurrying lightning displayed the power to destroy everything, like lightning dragons and lightning pythons. What was different from before was that without exception all of these strong lightning pillars were a demonic purple color. Boom! Thump! The purple lightning bolts struck down from different angles, rushing out in all directions. They were sharp and unstoppable. As they hit the crowd, a rain of sparks suddenly burst out. Several people could not resist and were pierced in the chest by the purple lightning bolts before exploding into smithereens. Yu Kai and Ba Meng were the first to be pushed back by the peerless purple lightning bolt. However, the deadly swordsman Yang Ping was on guard. The sharp sword in his hand shone with a string of dazzling talisman divine patterns. The body of the sword, which was already showing off its edge, once again solidified quite a bit. The sword aura covering it was abnormally lively. Boom! Yang Ping's sword directly cut through the purple lightning pillar in front of him. The broken lightning was like a dragon python that was cut into 2. Yang Ping's attack did not decrease, and the tip of his sword went straight for Chu Hen. Sorry, I'll take your life. Thump! Before Yang Ping could finish his words, an incomparably violent repulsive force suddenly flowed through the sword into his arm. What? The airflow in the air suddenly became violent, and Yang Ping's expression changed. He saw a purple light shield blocking in front of Chu Hen. The light shield was wide at the top and sharp at the bottom, and its shape was like a large token. On the surface of the shield, a pair of strange eyes vaguely appeared, flickering. It was this light shield that was comparable to an iron wall, and Yang Ping's sword couldn't push forward even an inch. "That's it?" Chu Hen's eyelids twitched slightly, and the corners of his mouth seemed to reveal a mocking smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the purple eye pattern on the shield released a bewitching soft light. Hum! The space trembled, and a cold purple flame appeared out of nowhere. It quickly covered the sword and rushed toward Yang Ping. Yang Ping was shocked, and in a hurry, he quickly retreated, brandishing his sword to repel the purple flame. As Yang Ping retreated, a strong murderous aura came from both sides. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes swept back and forth, and a long spear and a sharp sword directly attacked his vitals. A piercingly cold aura surged up and down the two sharp weapons. Whether it was the power or the sharpness, it was obvious that they were stained with blood. Humph! Chu Hen sneered indifferently. He actually didn't care about the cold spear on his left, and took the initiative to turn to face the sharp sword. Whoosh! With a loud and clear sword cry, the dark green-blue sky sword appeared in Chu Hen's hand. It was as swift as the wind and as fast as lightning. Clang! A crisp sound rang out, and the person holding the sword attacking Chu Hen was startled. He only felt his arm tremble slightly, and the sharp sword that was stabbing toward Chu Hen had already deviated from its trajectory. Before he could react, a clear hiss sound rang out, and a string of blood rained down. An arm holding a long sword was immediately sent flying. This happened in an instant. That person's pupils shrank, and he didn't even feel the pain. At the same time, the cold spear had already reached the heart of Chu Hen's back. The face of the person holding the spear revealed a sinister and cruel smile. In his opinion, Chu Hen's action of turning his back to him was simply stupid and laughable. He die. Idiot. Along with his voice, a sharp hiss sound rang out again. The sound of a sharp weapon cutting through flesh was clearly heard, and everyone's expression changed drastically. The moment that long spear touched Chu Hen's back, Chu Hen turned around and quietly slashed his sword across the sky like a stream of light that had flown through thousands of years. A crescent moon-shaped sword light swept across the sky. Chapter 1294. The piercingly cold, killing intent was like a cold wind blowing through the forest. Frost rose everywhere, and dust filled the sky. The cold wind that emitted a cold, killing intent stacked up in the Chonglin forest. The dazzling rainbow-like sword light caused the world to lose its color. Under numerous gazes that were filled with shock, a round head immediately flew out. Everyone's faces faintly paled as they watched the fountain of blood spurt out like a fountain. Hiss! Another sharp sound of wind breaking entered everyone's eardrums. The pupils of the sword-wielder, who had his arm cut off, sharply shrank. A dark green longsword flashing with purple lightning arcs directly pierced through his throat. Blood spurted out, and he couldn't even make a sound. As his eyes quickly glazed over, the other party's vitality quietly disappeared. In an instant, he had killed several people. Chu Hen's thunderous means made people's hearts tremble. However, the arrow had already left the bow, and everyone's eyes were surging with an icy cold light. Figures releasing strong killing intent still pounced on Chu Hen. Kill! Looking at the surrounding pairs of ruthless eyes, Chu Hen's heart seemed to have a fierce killing beast quietly awakened. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, and the arm holding the blue rand sword glowed with a series of dazzling purple lightning. So, don't blame me, OM. As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely powerful and ferocious murderous aura suddenly erupted from his body, and his deep pupils surged with traces of darkness. In the long forest, a cold wind suddenly blew. Together with the majestic black tide that blotted out the sky and covered the earth, heaven and earth shook violently and restlessly. Swish, swish, swish. In the next moment, numerous material and strange black pillars of light shot down diagonally from the sky, and they were like numerous enormous spears that stabbed diagonally into the sky and revealed shocking might. Everyone quickly dodged, and a few people were hit by the black light beam. They all fell heavily to the ground, vomiting blood, and couldn't get up. Looking at the light beams distributed in the forest, everyone couldn't help but narrow the corner of their eyes. But then, a monstrous baleful aura rose outside Chu-Hen's body. Myriad feast of gluttony, there seemed to be a trembling roar of an awakened fiend god. The four souls, the power of hunting, suddenly erupted. Hee! Howl! The interior of all the light pillars suddenly showed a strange distortion, like a door that had been twisted open in the twisted space. In an instant, terrifying roars of demons rang out in the dense forest. Under everyone's bewildered gazes, ferocious and terrifying monsters emerged from the black pillars of light one after another. An ice-cold evil aura invaded the earth. A gloomy aura attacked like a gray fog. A pair of hands with sharp claws and a sinister silhouette appeared. It was like a monster that had broken through the gates of hell and pounced on the human world. Meanwhile, Chu-Hen stood in the middle of the many pillars of light, like a wizard spirit that controlled the power of evil. Hee! A burst of strange laughter entered everyone's ears. Then, a black shadow rapidly flew out and pounced on the surrounding young geniuses. The shadow of death quickly enveloped them. Before the nearest young man could react, a ferocious face with sharp fangs appeared in front of him. Bang! With a heavy muffled sound, the young man suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He looked down and found a disc-sized bloody hole in his abdomen. His eyes widened in anger, and his face changed dramatically. In the next second, another black shadow pounced on him and bit his neck with its bloody mouth. Blood sprayed out like a beautiful rain of flowers. Amidst the hurried and terrified screams, the man struggled to calm down. This is Eagle Taoists, the power of hunting created by King Sinluo. This damn bastard! Anger and horror filled everyone's hearts. The evil and terrifying Eagle Taoists were like demons rushing out of the gates of hell. They were as fast as lightning, like hungry wolves and fierce tigers, pouncing on people and biting them. The cold and fierce wind filled the whole forest. Endless killing intent filled the air, as if they had fallen into the battlefield of a beast. The merciless group of Eagle Taoists started a cruel massacre in the most brutal and direct way. One by one, the geniuses were torn into pieces. Blood rained down, broken bones flew, and they died. What a vicious thing! Purgatory Peak's Yukai was both shocked and furious at the same time. Looking at the young figure that was emitting azure chi from all over his body, Yukai was both shocked and furious. His heart was also filled with greed. The various powers that Chu-Hen grasped all caused him to be incomparably envious. He was especially moved. Immediately, Yukai looked at heaven-splitting axe Ba Meng and life-seizing swordsman Yang Ping. Just now, the three of them were on the same level, but at this moment they had a sense of agreement. Roar! Ba Meng raised the power of the divine tiger, and the two axes in his hands surged with an extremely restless and powerful force. Accompanied by a layer of dazzling light, the broad axes turned into two huge axes that were 3 to 4 meters wide. The bright and luxurious light lingered on the two axes. The two divine axes, which were bigger than Ba Meng's body, were like two mysterious bright wings, showing an extraordinary momentum. Little bastard, I'm going to teach you a lesson next. Ba Meng swung the huge axes horizontally, and a flowing light that was like a rippling moon directly smashed several Eagle Taoists that were pouncing on him. Then, like a fierce tiger roaring at the sky, he rolled up a monstrous momentum and pounced on Chu-Hen. Heaven-splitting divine might, Ba Meng's roar was like a clap of thunder. Two shocking axe shadows that were more than 100 zhang crossed each other and chopped at Chu-Hen's head. The stunning axe radiance made all directions pale and tremble. Perish! The dazzling light rapidly engulfed Chu Hen in front of him, and the axe radiance, which was filled with the aura of death, fell in a crisscrossed manner. Rumble, in an instant the mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and rocks flew into the sky. The solid ground exploded inch by inch like bean curd dregs. The luxuriant trees were smashed into pieces, and the shrubs, flowers were all crushed into nothingness. The wantonly splashing shock waves, which were comparable to the surging waves, swept out. It must be said that Ba Meng lived up to his name. The heaven-splitting divine axe in his hand was incomparably fierce. Chaotic air waves tore the forest apart, and in the blink of an eye, two intersecting giant ravines appeared on the ground. The length of the two ravines was more than 1,000 meters. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the location where Chu Hen was, but they found that he had disappeared without a trace. Just when everyone thought that Ba Meng had smashed his opponent into pieces with one move, a piercingly cold and powerful aura suddenly attacked from the sky. "He's up there!" Everyone's heart jumped. Ba Meng's expression changed greatly. He suddenly raised his head, and before he could react, a frivolous and indifferent sneer entered his ears. "No matter how strong your strength is, it's useless if you can't hit the target." Swoosh! The restless and violent aura was like a ferocious beast shrouding down. Ba Meng's pupils shrank sharply, and a ball of purple lightning energy with a diameter of more than 10 meters shot toward his opponent. A thick destructive aura spread out. Boom! With a loud rumble, a huge lightning flower bloomed high up in the sky, stinging everyone's eyes. The purple lightning that continuously flowed about was like a huge 3D net that had split apart. A series of sparks flew on Ba Meng's body, and he shuddered. He was like a bull that had been struck down by a bolt of lightning. He crashed heavily on the ground, and as he coughed up blood, the divine axe in his hands flew away. Everyone's eyes were wide open in shock, and their hearts trembled. Also, at the same time, the fatal swordsman Yangping had already exploded with an incomparably powerful and sharp sword aura. Xiao! An aurora flashed, and the sword aura was like the wind. In the instant it attacked Chu Hen, it transformed into tens of thousands of sword images that were as dense as rain. Every sword shadow was so condensed that it seemed to have substance. The densely packed sword shadows moved rapidly, giving people the feeling that they were in the mouth of a grindstone. Once they were swallowed, they would definitely be ground to pieces. What a cold sword move! The surrounding people were all secretly shocked. He really deserves to be called Deadly Swordsman. In an instant, the airflow between heaven and earth was like a rotating vortex, and it pressed down on Chu Hen from all directions. Tens of thousands of sword shadows attacked. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he held the blue sky sword in his hand diagonally. He did not move, nor did he dodge, and he faced the attack head-on. Looking at Chu Hen, who did not dodge, Yang Ping's expression changed slightly. He calmed down, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Arrogant! Sword devouring life! Whoosh! The vibrating sound of a series of swift and fierce sword chi startled everyone. The dense sword chi shone brilliantly. Wherever it went, it devoured and minced everything. Once the leaves and gravel in the air touched the stirring sword chi, they instantly turned into wisps of smoke and dust. At this moment, Chu Hen's body also released an extremely strong and terrifying sword momentum. His figure suddenly accelerated, and he instantly turned into more than a dozen white humanoid sword chi. One sword flying immortal. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, along with the clear sound of air waves being cut, the humanoid sword chi launched attacks from different angles. Like ghosts shuttling through the sword rain, the two amazing sword momentum continued to fiercely collide with each other. Bang! Boom! Sword light shot out in all directions, filling the sky. The heavy explosion sounded like interweaving lightning. When the last humanoid sword chi arrived in front of Yang Ping, the dense sword rain released by it was directly split in the middle. The shocking sword momentum was as steady as a mountain, and it was as fierce as a rainbow. The chaotic sword rain was like an exploding storm, sweeping in all directions. The last humanoid sword chi turned into Chu Hen's body under Yang Ping's panicked gaze. He brandished his sword, and lightning arcs flickered. Yang Ping panicked and faced it with his sword. Bang! The tips of the two swords collided, and a condensed force shook the air. Yang Ping felt his arm go numb, and the blood in his body surged rapidly. His internal organs trembled and rolled. With the help of this powerful counterforce, Yang Ping retreated like a gliding swallow. Without waiting for Chu Hen to pursue, Yu Kai had already soared into the sky with a fiendish aura. Sorry to keep you waiting. Rumble! Wind and thunder rolled, and dark clouds pressed down. A black mountain surged with a dense fiendish aura, and it flew toward Chu Hen again. Compared to before, the Purgatory Peak showed its divine might this time, and the dark aura it emitted was like a rolling black wave, like a magnificent army. The terrifying destructive aura was comparable to the incoming stars and meteorites. In front of the huge black mountain, Chu Hen was as small as an ant. However, there was still no panic in those deep and calm eyes. Buzz, a dense and domineering black light surged out of Chu Hen's body, and waves of ancient runes flickered in the black light. A desolate and simple aura quietly spread out. Chu Hen raised his right fist and punched towards the black mountain peak that was flying towards him. As the space suddenly trembled, an incomparably solid black fist pillar burst out. It swept up the might of the heavens and solidly collided with the majestic mountain peak. Bang! Suddenly, heaven and earth shook violently. The rising waves of power were like a river that broke through a dam, rolling in all directions. The current scene, in everyone's eyes, was extremely incongruous. Under the black mountain, Chu Hen, who was so small. Everyone knew that Yu Kai's Purgatory Peak was not a weak artifact. Later on, after he refined it and strengthened it with over 10,000 demonic beasts and human souls, it finally became the current lethal weapon. Not only did it have a strong destructive power, but it also had a shocking sealing power. No matter how strong Chu Hen was, it was impossible for him to resist the Purgatory Peak. Was it arrogance? Or arrogance? Or perhaps ignorance? Yu Kai's face revealed a sinister smile. However, in the next moment, the other party's smile froze. Chapter 1295. Crack! Everyone's expressions changed when they saw the cracks appearing on the black mountain peak. Especially Yu Kai. His eyes widened as his expression changed drastically. How can this be? Bang! An incomparably heavy and earth-shattering explosion resounded. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a black fist pillar actually penetrated through the entire mountain peak. The torrential wind pillar was like a divine ray of light that had broken through a 10,000-year-old dam. The rapidly splitting cracks were like a spider web that rapidly spread across the surface of Purgatory Peak. The monstrous fiendish aura rapidly receded, while the evil fiendish chi that seemed to cover the sky also rapidly dissipated. Boom! The meteorite-like black mountain instantly lost all of its momentum and slammed into the ground, shattering rocks and sinking deep into the ground. It had been reduced to an ordinary mountain. Yu Kai was both shocked and furious. He tried his best to control the mountain to rise again, but found that he had already lost his connection with Purgatory Peak. Yu Kai stared in disbelief at the young figure standing in the air with an indifferent expression on his face. The power of a single punch could destroy even a divine artifact. Who exactly was this person? When did such a ruthless person appear in the martial ancestor? In the blink of an eye, Ba Meng, Yang Ping, Yu Kai and the others had all been defeated. At this sight, several people began to consider retreating. This kid is too strong. There's no hope of obtaining the yin-yang Genesis energy cauldron. Let's retreat. Yes, let's go. Screech. Just as several people were about to leave, a strange and sharp cry suddenly sounded from the forest behind them. Immediately after, a bone-chilling undercurrent of wind assaulted them. Along with a chilling fiendish blood aura, a dark red winged bird charged out from the forest. It was a winged bird, and it was especially strange. Its body was illusory and ethereal, and its claws, wings, and torso were all bones, while its head was similar to a human skull. It gave people the feeling that it was a demon that came from the dark hell. It was even stranger than the eagle Tautai summoned by killing the four-spirit spirit. That is? Everyone was shocked and bewildered. His voice hadn't finished resounding in the air when the bone bird that was coiled with a strange red blood mist actually charged swiftly towards a young genius, and that young genius was caught off guard. The bone bird was like a ray of light that charged into the young genius's body. A circle of scarlet light rippled out. That person's entire body trembled as he raised his head. All the tendons and blood vessels in his body bulged like a horned dragon, and even his eyes were suffused with a thick blood-red light. Roar! A deep roar came from the other party's throat, and under everyone's shocked gazes, that person's torso actually began to slowly expand. The clothes on his body began to tear, and in the blink of an eye, he turned into a 3-meter-tall small giant. Streaks of strange and complicated blood patterns appeared on the man's body. At the same time, a majestic and ferocious aura that was several times stronger than his own erupted, giving people the feeling that he had transformed into a ferocious beast. This is Deadly Sword Caesar Yangping, Purgatory Peak Yukai, and the others all widened their eyes, nervously scanning the deep forest around them. Swoosh! In the next instant, a hot blood mist suddenly rose from the forest where everyone was. The dense blood mist filled the forest, like a giant cauldron, shrouding everyone within it. Countless ancient runes quietly bloomed on the ground, like cracks in the underground magma, and a steady stream of blood mist rose from the runes on the ground. The 9 heavens were dark and devoid of light. A dark blood cloud covered the sky above everyone's head. A thick evil aura flowed in the air, and everyone's blood seemed to have become extremely agitated to the point of being abnormally angry. I can't be wrong. Yang Ping clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and said in a stern voice, "Blood shaman, curse, blood shaman, curse." Along with his voice, earth-shattering screeches came from the depths of the forest from all directions. Screech! Jie, the crowd of scarlet skeleton-winged birds were like countless souls of the dead, whistling toward everyone. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they tried to dodge. But these undead winged birds were everywhere, and there was nowhere to dodge. Buzz! The undead winged birds directly invaded the bodies of many geniuses, and every expert who was invaded felt as if their souls were being occupied. Their whole body erupted with an intense murderous rage, and their eyes turned blood-red. Their bodies changed, and they lost their minds. Ah! A furious roar came from Ba Meng's mouth. Ba Meng, who was seriously injured by Chu Hen, was attacked by 2 undead winged birds. When the undead winged birds entered his body, Ba Meng struggled on the ground like an enraged bull. As the veins in his body bulged, Ba Meng hammered the ground with his arms, and a monstrous killing intent erupted from him. He was even more furious than the others. "Get out of my way!" Yukai continuously sent out many powerful palm strikes to push back the undead winged birds beside him. But after losing the Purgatory Peak, his strength was obviously greatly reduced. He didn't resist for long, and several blood-red wings rushed into his body. The roars of ferocious beasts resounded inside and outside the forest. Everyone's eyes glowed with a demonic scarlet color. The deadly swordsman Yang Ping constantly released powerful sword energy to break out of the encirclement, but the blood mist pervaded the air and affected his state of mind. Screech! An undead winged bird took advantage of this momentary opening, and it turned into a ray of flowing light and entered the space between his eyebrows. Buzz! Yang Ping's body trembled, and his eyes were wide open. Strange blood traces extended from the corner of his eyes to his temples. The other undead winged birds seized the opportunity and rushed toward Yang Ping. The latter's eyes were bloodshot, and a murderous aura continuously erupted. Anger, regret, and a deep unwillingness turned into a final roar. Qin Shui, the earth-shattering roar echoed in the giant steam-like forest. Humanity quickly dissipated. Bloodthirsty killing intent kept awakening. Pairs of blood-red eyes turned to Chu Hen at the same time, and each of them was like a ferocious beast. There was no fear in their expressions, only indifference. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He moved his palm, and the purple lightning on the blue Ran sword immediately became brighter. Heaven-condensing pavilions, Qin Shui. After waiting for so long, he finally made his move. Don't be too careless. The blood witchcraft curse is a forbidden evil technique. Those who are controlled will become killing machines without any sense of pain, and their combat power will increase by several times. Mo Qing Li's voice rang in Chu Hen's ears. Hua! Before he finished speaking, a fierce and sturdy figure rushed over first. Chu Hen's eyelids lifted, and he raised his sword. A gorgeous sword arc dragged the light of lightning as it welcomed his opponent. Purring! The light of the sword scattered in all directions, and a wound rapidly opened up on that person's chest. Fresh blood sprayed into the air. His opponent, who should have been killed in one strike, was actually only pushed back tens of meters, and did not fall down, not waiting for Chu Hen to finish off his attack. A series of rapid and sharp wind-breaking sounds came from the surroundings. The cold sword light was like a rainbow. Chu Hen's body flashed, and the hundreds of feet of sword light swept past him, leaving a wide ravine on the ground. At this moment, Yang Ping's hair was disheveled, and he had a crazy aura. Even though his mind was controlled, his sword was still extremely sharp, and his blood-red eyes were like a demon's. The powerful attacks that followed caused Chu Hen to fall into a passive state. Previously, everyone had ulterior motives, and many of them held back. Now, everyone did not hold back, and they were even unafraid of death. A series of powerful attacks interweaved, and Chu Hen dodged repeatedly, trying to find a breakthrough point. Rumble! The rumbling thunder shook the sky, and the air shook the sky. Two giant axes released their divine power, and they chopped down on Chu Hen's head with the power to split the sky. Die! An icy cold and hard voice roared out from Ba Meng's throat. A cold light flashed in Chu Hen's eyes as he gazed at the black shadow that was swiftly approaching him, and he who'd been dodging earlier suddenly struck out with his sword. Hiss! The Jirun sword that flickered with dazzling violet lightning expanded rapidly, and it instantly transformed into a large sword of light that was over 3 meters long, and arcs of lightning coiled around it. The might of the sword was like a dragon, and it was swift like lightning. Bang! A heavy and oppressive bang resounded out as the Jirun sword that was like a divine light tore through the airflow, and it penetrated Ba Meng's chest with the might of a thunderbolt. Fresh blood sprayed into the air, and the air was like a whirlpool. The fierce sword light charged out from Ba Meng's back, and it was dazzling to the point it was slightly dazzling. To anyone, this sword strike would surely kill them. However, Ba Meng, who suffered such a heavy blow, actually didn't even frown, and the twin axes in his hands didn't stop in the slightest as they continued to chop down. Chu Hen's pupils constricted faintly. Without any hesitation, he immediately pulled out his sword and retreated. Although Chu Hen's reaction speed had already reached the limit, the powerful axe light released by the twin axes in Ba Meng's hands still lightly streaked past Chu Hen's body. Bang! Like a sandbag that was struck flying, Chu Hen heavily smashed into the previously destroyed wall of the Purgatory Peak. 2 intersecting bloody marks quickly appeared on his chest, and it slowly dyed his clothes red. Although Mo Qing Li had already warned him, Chu Hen still didn't expect that the blood shaman curse would actually be so abnormal. He didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. Even his opponent's internal organs were minced, and he still didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Without giving Chu Hen any chance to catch his breath, everyone once again pounced over like monsters. The murderous aura in the forest became increasingly dense, and the air flow became increasingly rapid. "Let me do it." Mo Qing Li's tone seemed to contain a trace of a sigh. However, Chu Hen stood up unhurriedly, and his deep eyes were suffused with a resolute coldness. Chapter 1296. Screech! Kiki! The originally dark and lush forest was now shrouded in a bloody mist, making it look like a huge blood-colored steamer. An overwhelming number of red skeleton-winged birds flew around, as if they were sentries from hell. Blood Shaman Curse. Qin Shui, who had been hiding in the dark for a long time, finally chose to make his move. Like a schemer who had set up a shocking chess game, he quietly completed the secret technique and directly controlled everyone in the palm of his hand. As expected of someone more dangerous than Lu Minghong, the forest was filled with murderous aura, setting off waves of piercingly cold air currents. The increasingly rapid airflow caused the entire forest to be filled with an unprecedented sense of danger. "Let me do it." Mo Qing Li sighed softly. "No need." Chu Hen, who stood up unhurriedly, indifferently rejected the other party's suggestion. He looked at the fierce figures that were emitting monstrous murderous aura, and with a flip of his left hand, a strange pill that was flickering with red light actually fell into his palm. Supreme Blood Explosion Pill. Mo Qing Li was slightly surprised. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, the group of ferocious demons launched an all-out attack on Chu Hen, each of them emitting a violent aura that was several times stronger than before. The group of people who had lost their rationality were completely turned into killing machines. More than 10 shocking auras rapidly approached, wanting to crush Chu Hen into pieces. Chu Hen's eyes were incomparably calm, without a trace of panic in them. In an instant, bang! An earth-shattering loud sound suddenly exploded in the sky. A surging wave of energy that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas was comparable to the instantaneous explosion of a dam. The powerful energy wave swept out in all directions like a powerful whirlpool. The space was about to split, the earth was shattered, and the surrounding forest was completely swept away, flattened and cut in half. Bang, bang, bang. One after another, strong and powerful figures were sent flying, like a herd of beasts being blown away by a storm, scattered and scattered on the ground. There were also a few people whose internal organs and bones were shattered on the spot, struggling and twisting on the ground with difficulty. Rumble! At the center of the encirclement, Chu Hen was surrounded by an extraordinarily domineering blood-colored steam. The color of this blood-colored steam was even more solid than the blood mist that pervaded the world. The violent aura caused the surrounding space to fluctuate rhythmically. Chu Hen's eyes were suffused with traces of scarlet light, and the veins and blood vessels on his body were also faintly bulging. The blood vapor that continuously mixed and surged was like a divine flame. At this moment, Chu Hen seemed to have transformed into a ferocious demon and raging beast. Hee. A devilish smile appeared on the corners of Chu Hen's mouth. He felt that every inch of his tendons, veins, and flesh was filled with an extremely violent and monstrous power. The true inner force in his body was like boiling water, tumbling noisily. The power that was constantly overflowing was like an uncontrollable prehistoric beast. His cold eyes glanced at the people around him. He raised his eyebrows and smiled lightly. "It's about to start, everyone." Whoosh! As his voice fell, a wave of air trembled in the air. Accompanied by the blood-colored steam that soared into the sky, Chu Hen took the lead and rushed to the person closest to him. He threw a punch, and the true inner force that lingered around his fist and arm immediately transformed into the shadow of a ferocious and raging thunder and lightning dragon. Bang! That person did not have the slightest ability to resist. When the punch landed, his sturdy and mighty body was immediately torn into pieces. The people who were being controlled were not the slightest bit surprised by this. Once again, they exploded with shocking power and attacked Chu Hen from all directions. However, after consuming the supreme sacred explosive blood pill, all the power in Chu Hen's body was instantly strengthened by more than 10 times. His originally incomparably powerful physical strength was once again stimulated to the potential within him. At this moment, every punch and kick had the power to split the heavens and the earth. Even the many genius experts who had transformed into ferocious monsters could not withstand Chu Hen's explosive attack. Bang! In a head-on confrontation, Chu Hen and one of them threw a punch at each other. As soon as their fists collided, dense blood steam soared into the sky behind them, and a force comparable to a mountain torrent surged out. That person's entire arm instantly exploded into pieces, flesh and blood splattered in all directions, and an ear-piercing howl of rage could be heard. Kill! A low and deep roar came from the left, and Ba Meng, who had a bloody hole in his chest, still attacked fiercely towards Chu Hen. The 2 axes in his hands suddenly chopped down, and the swift and fierce axe light drew a bright crescent arc in midair. Chu Hen's gaze slightly focused, and the blue sky sword in his right hand rose up and flicked up. The graceful sword momentum caused the heavens and the earth to darken, and a violet lightning pillar slashed out horizontally, and it was breathtaking like a glimpse of starlight. Hiss! A pillar of blood splattered as the sword light streaked across his throat, and a hideous head flew out. Then, Chu Hen leaped up, somersaulted in the air, and slashed down with his sharp sword. Chi! That headless sturdy body was once again split into two halves. Blood mixed with broken internal organs splashed out wantonly. The pervasive smell of blood began to baptize the jungle. If the people controlled by the blood shaman curse were ferocious demons that obeyed orders to kill, then at this moment, Chu Hen was more like the king of ferocious demons. Myriad, extreme cold storm, whoosh! The ice-cold airflow that could freeze the heavens and the earth swept out in all directions, and a thick layer of ice quickly covered the ground, enveloping the jungle and trees. Yang Ping, Yu Kai, and the other human-type experts who were controlled immediately slowed down. The endless invasion of the ice-cold power immediately turned this place into Chu Hen's home ground. The situation, which was already unstoppable to begin with, had now turned into a one-sided massacre. The forest was bathed in blood. One after another, enraged and powerful figures died under Chu Hen's sword. Broken limbs flew all over the sky, and bloody snowflakes bloomed in the void, and then immediately solidified into red ice crystals. Holy explosive blood pill? This guy? In the dark of the jungle, the group of people from Heaven Gathering Pavilion all revealed expressions of shock. In the middle of the encirclement, a sickly pale figure was sitting in the center of a strange glyph formation. The glyph formation's patterns were complicated and strange, and it had a dark red luster like dried blood. Senior Brother Qin, why don't you use the blood shaman curse to directly control that surnamed Chu? Li Yanqing asked in a low voice. Logically speaking, now that more than half of the jungle had fallen into Qin Shi's control, it was the easiest to directly control Chu Hen. Sitting in the glyph formation, Qin Shi slowly opened his eyes, and a faint trace of surprise surged between his brows. This person seems to have an extremely strange power on his body, but the blood shaman curse can't get close to him. What? Everyone was shocked. The blood shaman curse can't get close to him? Why is that so? Li Yanqing was even more shocked. Qin Shi narrowed his eyes slightly and said with a deep meaning, "The aura of that power seems to be even more evil than the blood shaman curse." After saying that, Qin Shi's eyes turned cold. Chapter 1297. Hiss! His aura soared into the sky, and his momentum shook the 9 heavens. Shrouded in the violent blood-colored steam, Chu Hen was like a cruel and merciless god of death. The blood rage qi that erupted from his body was like a surging red waterfall. Every inch of his flesh, blood, tendons, and bones was filled with a terrifying power that could split the heavens and split the earth. Bang! With one punch, the opponent's limbs exploded. With one kick, the opponent's internal organs were shattered. If the people controlled by the blood witchcraft curse were violent and ferocious beasts, then Chu Hen was more like a ferocious demon king that controlled their lives and deaths. The blood-colored steam swept in all directions, and wherever it went, a cyclone was like a flood. Holding the blue sky sword, Chu Hen's every move was fatal, and every strike was bloody. As if he was cutting melons and vegetables, he killed the tyrannical and ferocious figures on the spot. Severed limbs flew in the air. The permeating blood soaked the ground and slowly seeped into the soft soil. Chi. The heaven and earth darkened. The sword aura that pierced through the sky was like a divine blade that instantly cut a powerful and sturdy figure into several pieces. In the blink of an eye, there were only a dozen or so young geniuses left from the initial group of nearly 100. The deadly swordsman Yang Ping and the purgatory peaks Yu Kai stared coldly at Chu Hen like wild beasts. Deep roars came from their throats. Chu Hen, who had traces of lightning lingering around his body, also appeared completely indifferent. His cold and fierce eyes suddenly turned cold, and he suddenly looked into the dark forest in front of him. You want to exhaust me to death? I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. The invisible aura of a king crushed out and surged into the forest. Buzz, in the next moment, a similarly shocking and majestic aura surged from the front. Screech! Screech! Accompanied by the surging waves of air, all the winged birds and evil creatures hovering above the forest let out sharp and excited cries. Bang! Bang! The heavy sounds that sounded like giant beasts stepping on the ground spread from far to near. The forest collapsed and the earth cracked. A pair of blood-red eyes the size of millstones gradually appeared in the darkness. In an instant, a giant creature that was 50 to 60 meters tall walked over. A strong evil aura rushed toward him. The blood mist between heaven and earth churned violently. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. What entered his eyes was actually a thing that looked like a human but was not a human. Its huge and sturdy body was covered with a heavy armor. Under a huge helmet, a faint and indistinct dark blue mist was surging. Other than a pair of blood-red eyes, no other facial features could be seen on the misty head. It gave people the feeling that there was only a ball of netherworld ghost fire under the helmet. Its body exuded an undead aura that made one's heart palpitate. Woo! The undead giant let out a strange howl. Following that, the skeleton-winged birds that were flying in the sky seemed to have received a summon. They swooped down from the sky like a swarm of bats, pouncing on the undead giant. Countless skeleton-winged birds transformed into shadow wings and entered the undead giant's body. Whoosh! In an instant, the illusory head under the helmet suddenly rose up like a blue ghost fire. Its already huge body rapidly grew, becoming 100 meters tall. A thick blood mist spread out and surged, and blood-red cracks appeared on the ground. At the same time, many of the young experts that were being controlled covered their heads with their hands, letting out miserable howls. Each of them trembled violently, and traces of blood mist flowed out of their bodies. Subsequently, the overflowing streams of blood surged towards the undead giant. Like souls being forcibly extracted, the flesh and blood of those people rapidly shriveled up. Woo! Woo! Life-taking swordsmen Yang Ping and Purgatory Peak Yu Kai let out shrill screams. The aura and power that they emitted were rapidly being plundered. Their limbs were as thin as sticks, and their eyes and cheeks were deeply sunken. In the blink of an eye, they were reduced to hideous, miserable, and terrifying corpses. And the undead giant's figure once again broke through the top of the forest, turning into 100 meters tall evil spirit. Dark, cold, blue ghost fire burned around its feet. Standing in front of Chu Hen, it was like an unshakable giant. Looking at the unrecognizable, lifeless bodies of Yang Ping and the others, even Chu Hen was secretly shocked. What a vicious sorcery! This is the main body, created by the blood shaman curse, Mo Qingli explained in a low voice. Any living being that is being controlled will have all their power forcibly taken away. I'm afraid you have to be careful, be careful. As soon as these 3 words fell, the undead giant clenched its fist. Along with the trembling space, a thick bloody light surged from all directions, condensing into a giant blood-colored axe in its palm, a domineering aura comparable to that of a hellish war soul soared into the sky. With a wave of the huge axe, the earth split and mountains collapsed. Gullies split open and a boundless blood-colored pillar of light chopped down, furiously exploding towards Chu Hen's location. Chu Hen's pupils rapidly shrank. A rushing force surged forth like a surging stream, followed by a bang. Sound of a heavy explosion reverberated in midair. The peerless blood-colored beam of light slammed into a purple shield of light. The space around it trembled uneasily, and the mighty shockwave directly spread out from the left and right sides of the shield, surging towards the back. Chu Hen's figure flashed, and he flew into a better position. Looking at the incomparably violent chaotic energy below, Chu Hen's eyes surged with coldness. At this time, the blood vapor surrounding Chu Hen's body gradually thinned, and the effects of the supreme sacred blood explosion pill were slowly decreasing. "The blood explosion pill is weakening. You have to hurry up and end the battle," Emo Qingli reminded. However, the corners of Chu Hen's mouth rose, and he replied without the slightest panic. "What's there to be afraid of? Oh? Don't tell me you want to. Come. Before he finished speaking, a demonic purple splendor suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's eyes. Whoosh, a pair of purple wings of light immediately rushed out from the blood-colored airflow below. The wings of light were like a gliding shuttle, and they leapt into the sky from afar. The pattern on the shield shone brilliantly, like a divine ray of light from beyond the heavens. Chu Hen reached out with one hand, and grasped the shield of light from afar. Accompanied by a strong pulsation of energy, the shield drew a stunning arc in the air, and then rapidly accelerated, slashing down towards the undead giant below. Then, a sharp sound filled the air. 6 black dots appeared in the depths of Chu Hen's eyes, and a formless and powerful aura spread in all directions. In an instant, the moving punishment shield transformed into dozens of purple shields of light that were exactly the same as the first one. The dozens of shields were arranged in an orderly manner into a huge triangle, with their sharp tips lined up in front, like a shadow-blade eagle piercing through the sky, dragging out a vortex that could tear the heavens and split the earth. 6-star demon eyes, blade of punishment. Chu Hen's throat moved slightly, displaying the extraordinary aura of a king. Roar. The undead giant below was covered in blue flames, and its blood aura was monstrous. It raised its giant axe high and welcomed the attack. The power was shocking, and the punishment could destroy the heavens. When the two exceedingly powerful and terrifying energies came into contact, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The forest was swept away and everything collapsed. The thick blood mist and blue flames were like a torrent that had been split apart, and they were directly split apart from the middle. The triangular shadow wings formed by dozens of shields of punishment dragged along a destructive aura, shattering the giant axe, and then heavily smashed into the body of the undead giant. Unstoppable, endless sharpness. The 5-star demon eyes punishment armor was used as a shield. After the 6-star demon eyes was upgraded to a blade. The endless power of the blade rushed into the forest, and the extremely sharp triangular blade cut into the chest of the undead giant like a heavenly shuttle that could split the heavens and the earth. The thick armor shattered and exploded, and the huge body was split into two. The entire forest shook and trembled violently. Waves of turbulent airflow made ear-piercing whistling sounds. With a loud bang, the blood and chi went berserk and wantonly filled the air. That gigantic creature then exploded into a bloody mist and red light that filled the sky. The main body of the blood shaman curse was instantly killed. The power of the 6-star demon eyes is so terrifying, Emo Qingli murmured softly. At the same time, on the other side of the dark forest, Qin Shui, who was sitting in the center of the blood rune formation, suddenly trembled violently, and then with a loud bang, he was suddenly sent flying, and a large mouthful of blood gushed out of his mouth. Li Yanqing and the others were shocked. Senior Qin. What happened? How could this be? Before the crowd could react, a wild current surged from the forest behind them, and the trees were destroyed, and the soil and vegetation were swept away. An indifferent voice then came into everyone's ears. Sorry, everyone, I found you. Everyone's hearts trembled. Chapter 1298. I'm sorry, everyone, I've found you. The frivolous and indifferent voice was like a sharp sword piercing the heart, instantly causing the expressions of the people from even Firmament Pavilion to change drastically. Qin Shui, who had crashed into the ground, continuously spat out blood. His already pale face was filled with disbelief. Hua, along with the surging and vigorous waves, the invisible pressure was like a mountain pressing down. Everyone only saw a purple light flash before their eyes, and a slender figure that was swaying with a bewitching purple flame appeared in front of them like a fiend god. The sharp and fierce aura was like a sword tablet with an aura that shocked the heavens, emitting a breathtaking aura. A cold and stern aura wantonly filled the air, like a cold current. Li Yanqing and the other disciples of even Firmament Pavilion felt their bodies freeze on the spot. Looking at the face filled with a demonic aura, none of them could summon the slightest will to fight. All of them could smell the scent of death. Qin Shui shakily crawled up from the ground. The destruction of the main body of the blood shaman curse had directly caused him to suffer heavy injuries. He had never imagined that Chu Hen would be able to perform such a great reversal in a situation where he held so many advantages. In order to keep Chu Hen here, he did not hesitate to use the lives of Yang Ping, Yu Kai, and many other geniuses to complete the blood shaman curse. He did not expect that he would still lose. How is it? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly. Seeing the indifferent playfulness in Chu Hen's eyes, Qin Shui's heart suddenly hardened. He gritted his teeth and shouted in a low voice, "Kill!" But just as he finished speaking, a trace of gorgeous purple lightning flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. In an instant, tens of violent arcs of lightning exploded from his palms and arms. Crack! A powerful flower of lightning bloomed in his palm. Chu Hen's 5 fingers loosened, and a shadow blade of lightning rapidly tore through the air, attacking Qin Shui. The latter's pupils shrank to a point, as if he had touched the shadow of the god of death. That bolt of lightning was like a blade of death, dragging traces of arcs of light behind it as it cut into Qin Shui's body. With a hiss, Qin Shui was split into 2 along with a spray of blood and broken internal organs. A rain of blood danced in the air, and the air was filled with a chilling aura that made people shudder. In just one day, after Lu Minghong, another top genius on the honor list had lost his life to Chu Hen. Boom! At this moment, Li Yanqing and the rest of the Qi Shao Pavilion disciples felt as if a bolt of lightning had exploded above their head. Their bodies turned cold and their scalps went numb. He died in an instant, not even having the chance to let out a scream. Qin Shui's fate made everyone tremble in fear. Everyone looked at Chu Hen with unprecedented fear in their eyes. Especially the 10-feathered demon blade Li Yanqing. At this moment, he realized how foolish and laughable his idea of taking back the 4 soul spirits was. Bang! The people of Qi Shao Pavilion involuntarily bent their knees and knelt on the ground. Qin Shui's death scared them out of their wit. They accepted their fate. All of them abandoned their weapons and surrendered. Looking at the frightened crowd, Chu Hen's lips curled into a disdainful smile. "You don't even have the right to make me attack." Swoosh. There was a slight sound in the air. Li Yanqing and the rest felt their hearts tremble. They raised their heads and looked around, not knowing what to do, only to find that the other party had already disappeared. "He didn't kill us?" Everyone looked at each other. Their expressions were one of surprise, some of relief, but most of it was the fear that had yet to fade. Swoosh! The sky gradually darkened. In the vast and quiet forest, Chu Hen flashed through the forest like a spirit. There was still a faint blood vapor that had not yet faded around his body, making him look like a mist-like robe. Why did you let those small fries go? Emo Qingli asked. Given Chu Hen's personality, he did not like to be lenient towards his enemies. Chu Hen frowned slightly as he replied in a low voice, If I killed them all, no one would know that the yin-yang origin energy cauldron is in my hands. Emo Qingli was slightly taken aback. It seemed that Chu Hen intended to carry this pot to the end. As long as everyone knew that the yin-yang origin energy cauldron was in Chu Hen's hands, Yi Yao's side would be relatively safe. This was the main reason why he had let Li Yanqing and the rest go. Buzz, suddenly, an intense energy fluctuation suddenly burst out from Chu Hen's body. The blood vapor that should have dissipated actually once again leaked out. It was as if scarlet flames were stacked on top of each other and rose into the sky. This is... Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat. He felt the true Yuan energy in his body boil like boiling water. Berserk energy surged recklessly and continuously flowed out of his body. The aftereffects of the supreme sacred explosive blood pill. Emo Qingli replied. There's still aftereffects? Of course, the supreme sacred explosive blood pill is a top-tier saint-grade pill. Given your ancient eternal stage cultivation, it is already difficult for you to completely digest its power. You'd better find a place to refine it, otherwise the aftereffects of the explosive blood pill might damage your meridians. I know. Chu Hen nodded his head. Then, with a movement of his body, he changed his direction and headed deeper into the forest. Moments later, Chu Hen found a rather wide tree hole in the forest. The tree hole was surrounded by lush bushes. It was likely the nest of some kind of demonic beast. Chu Hen did not care in the slightest and directly flew into the hole. At this time, the chaotic energy in his body had become increasingly violent, like an uncontrollable undercurrent in the deep sea that was about to break through a dam and spill thousands of miles away. Chu Hen felt the blood flow and meridians in his body faintly swell. There seemed to be a majestic vortex of energy in his dantian. The vortex was connected to his purple palace, constantly alternating between old and new true yuan. Help me keep an eye on the surroundings. He did not have much time to set up a defensive talisman array, so he could only give Emo Qingli some simple instructions. Soon after, Chu Hen sat upright on the ground and closed his eyes. He slightly calmed himself down and closed his eyes to cultivate. The vigorous energy produced by the supreme sacred explosive blood pill was like a rolling torrent, constantly spreading and rising in Chu Hen's body. The overflowing blood vapor gathered around Chu Hen, forming strands and strands of blood mist-flowing shadows. As time passed, Chu Hen's neck, cheeks, and arms were actually faintly discernible red lines that intersected with each other in the gloomy environment. The red lines appeared rather demonic and demonic. Time passed slowly and quietly. The forest was shrouded in darkness. Not a single ray of light could be seen. Specks of fireflies could be seen in the bushes, and the disorderly chirping of insects instead showed the deep silence. Inside the Purple Palace of True Yuan. The Purple Palace of True Yuan, which had formed a small world, was now filled with an earth-shattering blood mist. The blood mist flowed between the mountains and rivers, sank into the mountains, and rose into the sky. Even the river of True Yuan, which had gathered endless majestic energy, was emitting waves of dense, soft light. Above the river of True Yuan, the Purple Palace Saint Soul, which looked exactly like Chu Hen, was also sitting in the air with its eyes closed. The blood vapor between heaven and earth was like 100 rivers flowing into the sea, pouring into the Saint's soul from all directions. Every strand, contained an extremely shocking amount of spiritual energy. Chu Hen's body and the Saint's soul were connected, so it accepted and fused with the rich spiritual energy produced by the supreme sacred explosive blood pill. Unknowingly, 3 days quietly passed. In these 3 days, Chu Hen was constantly refining and absorbing the supreme sacred explosive blood pill. Compared to the blood vapor from before, the Purple Palace of True Yuan was now as clear and bright as before. Above the river of true yuan, the illusory and ethereal Saint Soul was absorbing the last few strands of blood vapor. The blood vapor that gathered between heaven and earth was like a pair of red wings of light, converging and fusing with Chu Hen's Saint Soul. It had the power of all rivers flowing into the sea. It was neither fast nor slow, and it was steady. When the last strand of blood vapor fused with it, the Saint's Soul suddenly opened its eyes. Its bright eyes had the same proud look as Chu Hen's, Buzz. In an instant, an extremely powerful and transcendent aura erupted. In the purple palace of True Yuan, the mountains trembled and huge waves surged into the sky. Above the sky, the stars moved and the clouds surged. At the same time, Chu Hen's body, who was in the forest, also opened his eyes. Accompanied by a transcendent and majestic aura, a circle of invisible power surged out. The air wave that swept in all directions was earth-shattering, and the trees, vegetation, and the thick soil on the ground cracked and exploded. The space trembled, and the airflow surged. The powerful aura broke through the boundary of the 7th level of the ancient realm, and directly reached the 8th level. Chapter 1299. Boom! The uncontrollable violent aura set off a huge wave in the deep and lush forest. It was like a tsunami that surged in all directions. The earth cracked and mountains collapsed. The ground cracked and expanded rapidly. Trees and vegetation were all flattened and crushed. Within the purple mansion of true essence, rich spiritual energy filled the sky, making Chu Hen's purple mansion of true essence look like a paradise. The chaotic hazy area at the edge of the purple mansion of true essence opened up at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into mountains and rivers and stars. The surging true essence river was as wide as the sea. The purple mansion Saint's Soul hovering in the sky was swaying and shining with a holy golden light. The purple mansion soul's eyes were half open. The corners of its eyes were cold like arrows. Its deep and serene eyes seemed to contain the power of thousands of stars. Buzz, the golden radiance that lingered around his body grew stronger and stronger, and the radiance that bloomed was like a sun. There seemed to be a strange rhythm between heaven and earth. The universe seemed to rotate and the space trembled. As the light grew stronger, the illusory Saint's Soul became more and more ethereal. Rise! Chu Hen's deep and low voice came out from the Saint Spirit's mouth. 1. The space trembled and the mountains cracked. 10,000 rays of divine light sprinkled in the sky. When the Saint Spirit was immersed in the divine light, it actually showed signs of disintegration. Specks of light separated from the Saint Spirit, like sand dancing in the air, but in the next moment, the scattered specks of light gathered back together. The chaotic aura gradually calmed down. The divine light that enveloped the Saint's Soul also gradually dissipated. A soft sigh came from the Saint's Soul and Chu Hen's mouth at the same time. Then, Chu Hen slowly opened his eyes. There was a faint trace of disappointment in his eyes. "I'm still a little lacking," he muttered to himself. Emo Chingli said. "A supreme blood explosion pill allowed you to reach the 9th stage of the eternal realm. Are you still not satisfied?" Chu Hen smiled and rubbed his nose. "It's just a little regretful." Just now, Chu Hen had vaguely touched the threshold of a higher level, but the moment he grasped it, the obvious lack of momentum caused him to lose this opportunity. Therefore, it was inevitable that there would be a fly in the ointment. "You've already surpassed my expectations to be able to sense the opportunity to break through to the Saint King stage at this time. Is this considered encouragement? Forget it." "Thank you." A smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Soon after, he stood up and scanned his surroundings. Compared to before, the environment had already undergone a tremendous change. The original tree hole and shrubs were gone. A thick layer of soil was scraped off the surface. He could feel the surging power in his body. It was many times stronger than a level 7 Eternal Realm cultivator. If he were to face the situation that day in his current state, Chu Hen had absolute confidence that he wouldn't need to borrow the power of any kind of pill. I wonder how little Yao is doing now? Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and was about to return to the ancient city. Right at this moment, the sound of rushing wind could be heard coming from their direction. Sensing that familiar aura, Chu Hen could not help but raise his brows. Senior brother Wu Yen. As soon as the voice came out, a stream of light descended diagonally from the sky, then flashed and landed on the ground more than 10 meters away. When the newcomer saw Chu Hen, he heaved a sigh of relief. It's good that you're fine. Why are you here? Where are they? Chu Hen quickly asked. Don't worry. They're fine. Wu Yen walked towards Chu Hen as she replied. The process of refining the yin-yang origin energy cauldron is much more difficult than expected, but junior sister Yi Yao has already found a way and the situation has stabilized. Junior sister Long has been worried and asked me to look for you. Of course, in the past 3 days, I've been guarding the entrance of the Death Gate. During this period, no one came. It seems that everyone is convinced that the treasures are with you. Chu Hen nodded and felt slightly relieved. Let's go back. And Wu Yen nodded. Creak, at this moment, a slight sound of stones being touched came from not far away. The two looked to the side and saw a small gecko-like beast lying between the stones. The small beast was about the length of a finger, and its aura was so still that it was almost impossible to sense. A pair of round eyes stared at Chu Hen and Wu Yen. It's senior brother Wang Li's messenger beast. Wu Yen raised her eyelids and exchanged a glance with Chu Hen before she hurriedly walked forward. Wu Yen squatted down in front of the small gecko and extended her left hand towards it. I've carried out a mission with senior brother Wang Li before, and it has absorbed my true yuan. It can also sense my location through the aura of my true yuan. Wu Yen explained to Chu Hen, who was walking behind her. At the same time, the small gecko slowly raised its head, its slightly bulging belly wriggling up and down. Like a snake spitting out its food, it spat out a small paper scroll into Wu Yan's hand. Chu Hen was slightly astonished. He then looked at Wu Yen. The latter gently unrolled the scroll, and 2 lines of clear words appeared in front of the two people's eyes. A key has appeared on the Wind Slasher platform. Quickly come and help. Both of them were startled. Although there were only a dozen or so words, one could clearly see the urgency in them. Wu Yen frowned and cast an inquisitive gaze towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen asked, How long will it take for little Yao to arrive? It's hard to say, but it will take at least 3 days. Wu Yen replied. Evidently, Wang Li and Xiao Xingyi could not wait that long. After a brief moment of hesitation, Chu Hen immediately made a decision. Let's go to senior brother Qiu first. The current situation did not put too much pressure on Yi Yao's side. As long as everyone believed that the yin-yang genesis energy cauldron was with them, the ancient city would be in a peaceful state. Even if someone accidentally broke into the ancient city, there was a high chance that they would not enter the bottom. After all, from the outside, it looked like a place that had already been plundered, and there would not be anything useful left. Even if someone was lucky enough to go down, given Long Xuanxuang's ability, she should be able to protect herself. After all, behind the Death Gate was the world within the yin-yang genesis energy cauldron, which contained the yin-yang genesis energy that had accumulated for tens of thousands of years. With the uniqueness of the sacred ice body, Long Xuanxuang had the geographical advantage. As for Yi Yao, there was no need to mention that her sacred ice body was completely unrestricted in the world within the cauldron. Wu Yen also nodded solemnly. She turned towards the small gecko and asked, Where is the Wind Slasher platform? Swoosh. As soon as she finished speaking, the gecko immediately turned into a beam of light and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, it was already 100 meters away. So fast. Chu Hen was secretly alarmed. Chapter 1300. The cold wind whistled, and the stone rampart was like a fortress. This was a strange place where numerous stone ramparts were piled up. The stone ramparts that were 100 meters tall were like huge bamboo shoots that had drilled out of the ground. At first glance, they looked like sharp blades that were sticking out of the ground. The surrounding area was filled with jagged rocks of strange shapes and was surrounded by a green forest. A majestic and ancient Dao platform stood towering at the center of the stone ramparts. The two ends of the Dao platform were long, extending from the east to the west. From afar it looked like a giant saber, with the power to cut through the air. The wind slasher platform is right in front. Looks like we're not late, Wu Yan said to Chu Hen in a slightly relaxed tone as she looked at the ancient high platform that exuded a sharp aura and the ant-like crowd gathered on the platform. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a trace of deepness between his brows. Although the situation on the wind slasher platform could be considered peaceful, there was a trace of restlessness in the air. When they flew closer, they saw Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying, and the others leading the martial sect. Its senior brother Wu Yan and junior brother Chu Hen. The eyes of the martial sect disciples lit up when they saw the two young figures with extraordinary auras. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, and Qi Qianying also looked at him in surprise. At the same time, the other people gathered around the wind slasher platform also cast astonished gazes over one after another. However, after a short moment of astonishment, their gazes were filled with contempt and disdain. Hey, another two passers-by. Don't be too careless. From what I know, that person is this year's strongest rookie king of the martial organization. I heard that he even won the championship of the sect battle. He, martial ancestors champion? Was it that amazing? At most, he would only be slightly stronger than Wang Li, Pei Yi, and the others. In the entire martial sect, other than Qiu Xingyi, who has some ability, the others are completely unworthy of his attention. Obviously, the arrival of Chu Hen and Wu Yan did not cause much of a commotion. Under most people's frivolous gazes, the two of them landed in the middle of the martial arts sect's group. Senior brother Qiu, senior brother Wang Li. Wu Yan took the initiative to greet them. You're here. Qiu Xingyi stepped forward and gave Chu Hen a meaningful look. According to Wang Li, Chu Hen had gone alone to pursue Lu Qian and the others from the Imperial Sword School. Now that Chu Hen had returned unscathed, it meant that the people from the Imperial Sword sect were most likely dead. Where are senior sister Xuan Shuang and little Yao? Zhao Qingkai and Zhao Qingyi, who were following behind Qiu Xingyi, asked with puzzled expressions. Chu Hen exchanged a glance with Wu Yan before replying, "We'll talk about this later. What's the situation now?" The few of them were startled. Wang Li slightly raised her head and pointed at the central region of the wind slasher platform. On the central stone platform in the middle, there were 4 ancient stone blocks that were 7 to 8 meters tall standing in 4 directions. Each stone block was engraved with complicated runes. The runes faintly overflowed with a strange soft light, giving people an aura that made them unapproachable. And, in the middle of the stone blocks, there was a stone platform that was more than 1 meter tall. The stone platform was in the shape of a hexagram and was surrounded by a golden arc. The golden arc was like a seal. Through the golden arc, there was a square-shaped crystal core on the stone platform in the middle. The square-shaped crystal core was about the size of a fist. The edges of the crystal core were embedded with a bright metal frame, and the interior was shining with a luxurious holy light. It was undoubtedly the secret key. Everyone looked at the key with a burning desire in their eyes. Chu Hen nodded his head. No wonder it was so urgent. It was a complete secret key and not a fragment. We've been waiting here for 2 days. The seal on the secret key is about to be removed. I'm afraid a fierce battle is unavoidable, Wang Li whispered into Chu Hen's ear. Chu Hen nodded his head to indicate that he was listening. Wu Yan looked around and stared at one spot. Is that the team from the Han Yun sect? Han Yun sect? Chu Hen subconsciously looked over. At that place, the figures of young people with extraordinary auras were rather eye-catching. The formless sharpness of their auras created quite a bit of pressure on the other people sitting there. However, the acquaintances he met in Wanzhong City, Su Lingzhu and Jing Shu, were not here. His gaze roughly swept over. Suddenly, a somewhat familiar figure quietly entered Chu Hen's peripheral vision. It was Li Yuanliang. Seeing this person, Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and a faint light flashed in his eyes. The last soul of 4 souls is here. Those ruthless people from the Han Yun sect are not here. It seems that we have the upper hand this time, Wu Yin said in a relaxed manner. However, Wang Li shook her head. I don't think so. They are too calm. Wang Li's voice was low and there was a trace of doubt in her words. The people from the Han Yun sect are too calm. They might have a backup plan. Wu Yin immediately stopped being relaxed and showed a serious face. Facing any top-grade force in the Midland, one should never be careless. Wait, who is that? Wu Yin suddenly paused, slightly clenched her fists, and asked with uncertainty, People from the Star River City? Yes. Wang Li confirmed. Star River City? Following the direction pointed by the two, Chu Hen moved his attention away from the Han Yun sect. On a separate stage on the east side of the wind/stage, 20 to 30 young people gathered. Compared to the invisible sharpness of the Han Yun sect's team, the aura released from these people was much calmer and more restrained. They are indeed low-key. Wu Yin shook her head and said, The Star River City has always been like this. They are especially low-key. That person is Lu Yinxian, Wu Yin murmured. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. From the simple conversation between the two, Chu Hen could more or less tell that although this force named Star River City was low-key, it had a sense of existence that could not be ignored. The leader was wearing a long black robe. On the chest of the robe, there was a pattern of star dots. That person was quietly sitting in front of the team. His aura was faint, and his eyes were as calm as the water in an ancient well, without any ripples. Lu Yinxian, the genius ranked 50th on the list, Wu Yin said in a low voice. The last one? Chu Hen was slightly surprised. This person was actually ranked at the bottom of the list. Even so, Chu Hen was 100% sure that this genius from the Star River City was definitely much more powerful than Lu Minhong, who was ranked 49th, and Qin Shui, who was ranked 48th. Even Qiu Xingyi, who was ranked 46th, might not be able to defeat him. Hiding his strength, this was the first impression that Lu Yinxian gave to Chu Hen. At the same time, Lu Yinxian quietly turned his eyes, subconsciously glancing at Chu Hen. Their eyes met in the air, and there seemed to be a faint airwave rising in the air. A trace of surprise flashed across Lu Yinxian's eyes. Chu Hen lightly sniffed his nose. Shortly after, he turned his face away without much expression on his face. Buzz. Suddenly, a strange spatial rhythm suddenly spread out from the inside of the wind-slasher platform. A layer of soft, flame-like light surged on the surface of the platform where the secret key was placed. The surrounding stone blocks were also dazzling and eye-catching. Everyone's heart could not help but tremble, and their eyes revealed expressions of shock. The restriction is about to be broken. Get ready to move. Swish, swish, swish. Along with the sound of the voice, a few figures who could not bear it anymore rushed to the center of the wind-slasher platform without waiting for the restriction to be broken. As if it was a chain reaction, the others also could not bear it anymore. The instant before everyone rushed to the center of the platform, the 4 stone blocks directly shone brightly. Thousands of luxurious rays of light flowed like an ancient talisman array. Buzz! A square-shaped barrier suddenly appeared around the high platform, blocking everyone's footsteps. Forcefully break the restriction. Someone shouted in a stern voice. It should have been like this long ago. We have waited for too long. In an instant, waves of incomparably violent and ferocious power hit the light curtain one after another. Waves of ripples surged and shook. The successive violent impacts quickly caused the barrier to show a severe depression, and there were fine and narrow cracks that slowly spread. Senior Qiu? Everyone from the martial sect turned their questioning gazes to Qiu Xingyi. Qiu Xingyi's gaze swept across the Galaxy City and the Han Yun sect, who had yet to make a move. His sword-like eyebrows raised slightly, but he was rather calm and composed. Bang! A heavy loud sound reverberated between the heavens and the earth. One of the light barrier was like a large mirror that had been smashed, shattering into pieces. Light and shadow fragments filled the sky, wantonly exploding. Everyone was like a school of fish in a flood. They rushed to the high platform at the fastest speed, rushing toward the six-pointed stone platform that was surrounded by the 4 stone blocks. An anxious atmosphere broke out. Restless emotions were vented at once. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the platform, on the secret key that was shrouded by a golden arc of light. Crash! Suddenly, just as the crowd was less than 10 meters away from the six-pointed stone platform, a majestic wave suddenly rushed toward them. The huge wave was violent, like a mountain torrent. The crowd who had just rushed to the high platform was swept away in the next second. One by one, they retreated pathetically, unable to stand steadily. Swoosh! Then, an extraordinary young figure suddenly appeared in the air above the platform. Between his sharp eyebrows, there was a hint of arrogance and dominance. Below the platform, everyone's eyes were filled with a biting cold light, each of them holding a sharp weapon in their hands. Qiuxingyi, are you trying to make all of us your enemy? Hee. Don't think that just because the martial sect has more people, you can monopolize the secret key. Facing the angry crowd below the platform, Qiuxingyi stood in the air, a domineering aura leaking out of him. Today, the martial sect must obtain the secret key. If everyone wants to fight for it, then I, Qiu, will risk my life to accompany you. Hua! A powerful aura spread out in all directions, causing everyone's heart to tremble. A powerful aura like a mountain spread out from Qiuxingyi's body. Everyone's expression changed. There was a faint sense of fear in his heart. After all, Qiuxingyi was ranked 46th on the leaderboard. His aura immediately suppressed the crowd. The martial sect disciples were surprised, and at the same time, they were filled with admiration for Qiuxingyi. Senior brother Qiu is indeed domineering. Looks like we can successfully obtain the secret key today. Looking at Qiuxingyi, who was standing on the stage, Chu Hen quietly nodded his head. Qiuxingyi's cultivation was much stronger than he had imagined. His courage and boldness caused others to feel admiration in their hearts. Rumble! At this moment, a powerful wave of air suddenly swept across the sky above the wind-slaying platform. The color of the sky changed, and a mocking voice filled with mockery spread across the sky. Chapter 1301. I'm sorry, but this key is mine. In the sky above the wind-slasher platform, a powerful wave of air swept out in all directions. The clouds surged and the blue dome of heaven trembled slightly. Together with a vast aura that was like a mountain pressing down, dozens of figures with powerful auras immediately appeared above everyone's heads. Whoosh! The invisible pressure caused everyone's heart to tremble. The geniuses and experts of the martial faction, Hanyun's sect, Galaxy City, and the other sects all squinted their eyes and revealed cautious expressions. I was wondering who was so arrogant. So it's the number 1 disciple of the martial sect. The playful laughter was filled with ridicule, and the person who spoke was a young man with an arrogant attitude. His arrogant and wild appearance was like an eagle that had charged out of the mountain stream, and he was extremely arrogant. He looked down at Qiuxingyi, who was standing on the high platform in the center, and raised his eyebrows. Long time no see. How have you been? How have you been? Hearing these words, everyone from the martial sect was slightly startled. He knew Qiuxingyi? Qiuxingyi's gaze turned sharp when he saw the other party. Then, another figure with a steady aura walked out from behind the arrogant man. This was a figure that emitted an extremely dangerous aura. His deep eyes contained a frivolous smile that made people feel uneasy. Hee, looks like we really don't hit it off. After so many years, we meet again. Qiuxingyi. The moment this person called out the other party's name, Qiuxingyi's sharp eyes suddenly flashed with a blade-like coldness. It was as if they had met again after so many years. The sharpness that had been hidden for a long time came out again. Qiu Xingyi gradually clenched his fists, and his knuckles cracked. His throat moved up and down, and he spat out a few words in a sonorous voice. Yang Zongxiao whoosh! Hearing these 3 words, the entire audience immediately burst into an uproar and restlessness. Everyone looked at that person with fear in their eyes. Lu Yinxian from Galaxy City lifted his eyes slightly, and he was surprised. It's Yang Zongxiao from the 5 Elements Divine Clan. Someone gasped. Yang Zongxiao, an existence ranked 41st on the wind cloud list. Now that I've seen him, he truly lives up to his reputation. Even the members of the 5 Elements Sacred Clan have come. Looks like we won't be getting our hands on the key today. Saint Race. He was the ruler at the top of the pyramid. They possessed the purest and most ancient inheritance power. Compared to the various bloodline boundaries of sects and influences, the Saint Race's bloodline boundaries were extremely orthodox. They controlled a supreme strength that ordinary people could not touch. They were the true dominators of a region. Even some sects and forces that had been around for tens of thousands of years would find it difficult to compete with them. Sensing the shock and fear in the surrounding atmosphere, Chu Hen thought to himself. As for the Saint clans, the first ones he came into contact with were the Light Saint clans that had chased him all the way from the Eastern Victory State to the tomb of the Immortal and Devil. Because Tuoba Shah had given him the Qitian token, the Light Saint race had started to pursue him relentlessly in the Eastern continent. Although they had clashed several times along the way, Chu Hen still had no understanding of the Light Sacred Clan. 41 St on the Wind Cloud list, Yang Zongxiao. His ranking was higher than Qiu Xingyi's. If Qiu Xingyi's attack had a deterrent effect, then Yang Zongxiao's appearance had overwhelmed everyone present with his aura alone. Wind Cloud list. Saint Clan. When these 2 titles were combined, anyone would have to weigh their own weight first. Yang Zongxiao smiled calmly. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Qiu Xingyi. Then, you can leave now. His calm voice carried a tone that did not allow for rejection. Qiu Xingyi's gaze turned cold. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Humph! The arrogant young man sneered disdainfully. An exiled person who has been chased out of the Saint clan shouldn't kneel and greet the ancestral clan? Wow! The moment he said that, everyone present was shocked. Especially the disciples of the martial sect, they were all stunned. Ancestral clan? Senior Brother Qiu is from the 5 Elements clan? Indeed. Senior Brother Qiu's bloodline boundary is the sacred body of 5 Element. What's going on? What about him in the past? Most of the martial sect disciples were shocked. Even Chu Hen's face was filled with confusion. Wu Yan, Wang Li, Pei Yi, and a few others weren't particularly surprised by this. Senior Brother Qiu used to be from the 5 Elements clan. Wu Yan explained in a low voice when she saw Chu Hen's confused look. However, he was chased out of the Saint clan, so he joined our martial sect. Why? Chu Hen frowned slightly. It's said that Senior Brother Qiu's father offended a high-ranking member of the ancestral clan. In the end, Senior Brother Qiu was implicated, causing him to be exiled from the 5 Elements clan, although he was not sure what had happened in the past. Judging from Qiu Xingyi's expression, he must have suffered great humiliation. His slightly red eyes were surging with unconcealable hatred. A cold wind suddenly blew between heaven and earth. Traces of frost floated in the air. Yang Zongxiao's gaze twitched, a hint of astonishment appearing in his eyes. Qiu Xingyi slowly loosened his fists, then raised 2 fingers on his right hand and said word by word, "The humiliation of the past, I will return it tenfold." The originally anxious atmosphere instantly turned hostile. All the martial sect disciples trembled, each of them wanting to draw their swords. Ha 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 ha! The arrogant young man laughed scornfully. In the Holy War, a large number of people can't do much. Fine. I was just worrying about not being able to find someone on the honor list to challenge. Today, I will kick you off and replace you with me, Yang Zongyan." With that, the young man's eyes spewed out scorching golden flames, and an extremely powerful bloodline power exploded in the air above the wind slasher platform. The scorching aura was like a ring of flames hanging high in the air, causing everyone to feel a sharp prickling pain on their skin. What terrifying power! Everyone was secretly shocked, and could not help but worry for Qiu Xingyi's fate. However, facing the overbearing and arrogant man, Qiu Xingyi's face was full of disdain. "It's better to let the person behind you make a move. Just you alone, I really don't think you're worthy." The arrogant man called Yang Zongyan's gaze instantly turned cold. "See how I'll give you 2 slaps." Buzz! As the sound of his voice faded, powerful energy undulations immediately gathered above everyone's heads. Yang Zongyan raised a single palm, and following a vortex storm that stirred the sky, an incomparably piercingly cold sword pillar directly descended from the sky. The huge golden sword was covered in luxurious patterns, causing the space to tremble uneasily. The killing aura caused the world to lose its color. The battle had begun. Facing the heaven-piercing sword that was like divine punishment, the corner of Qiu Xingyi's eyes turned cold, and a circle of white water quietly appeared around his body. Bang! With a heavy sound, the huge golden sword heavily struck Qiu Xingyi's position. The violent destructive power spread out, and the platform below Qiu Xingyi was instantly covered in cracks. The hexagonal stone platform where the secret key was placed emitted a powerful light barrier. Bang! In that instant, a huge ball of water rapidly exploded under the huge golden sword. Immediately after, a dozen or so thin pillars of water scattered in all directions and rose diagonally into the sky, charging towards Yang Zongyan. What an old-fashioned move! Yang Zongyan's eyes were full of disdain. Shortly after, his hands rapidly formed a seal, and his square mouth opened, spewing out rolling flames. Whoosh! The pillar of fire spewed out from his mouth rapidly grew in size during the attack. The flames were like a soaring dragon and dancing phoenix, and as the water and fire met, they instantly turned into white mist. Hiss! The wantonly rising mist was like a huge mushroom cloud, and within the white mist, a blurry figure was faintly discernible. Yang Zongyan coldly smiled, and once again extended his palm forward. Whoosh! Light sounds stacked up, and countless flowing lights shot out from his palm. As they moved, the beautiful flowing lights turned into sharp spears. The rain of spears and arrows that covered the sky and covered the earth attacked the figure within the white mist. The mist pierced through, and the figure was torn to pieces. But in the next instant, another thin pillar of water shot out from below. The speed of this pillar of water was incomparably fast, and it looked like a stream. Whoosh! The water pillar directly pierced through the scorching flames and white mist, directly attacking Yang Zongyan. The latter was slightly surprised, but quickly reacted. Heavy rock shield. A dense brown light covered Yang Zongyan's arms, and a 2 to 3 meter thick, 7 to 8 meter wide thick rock wall shockingly condensed in front of Yang Zongyan. Bang! The rapid and piercingly cold water pillar directly hit the rock wall, and in almost an instant, the shockingly thick rock wall was actually forcefully pierced through by the water pillar. What? Everyone present was greatly astonished. What a terrifying impact! As expected of senior brother Qiu. Even Chu Hen was slightly shocked. The destructive power of a mere water pillar was completely not inferior to the power of a sword, spear, sword, or halberd. Qiu Xingyi was indeed worthy of being the monster that occupied the first place of the martial ancestor sect's heavenly martial list. Crack! Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, that thin and long water pillar was like an upturned wave-breaking water blade. Like cutting through tofu, it incomparably neatly split the rock wall into 2 halves. Behind Yang Zongyan, Yang Zongyan's expression clearly changed, but before he could react, a young figure with an extraordinary bearing suddenly appeared in front of him. Humph, it's been so many years, but you haven't improved at all. Chapter 1302. Humph, it's been so many years, but you haven't improved at all. A cold and indifferent laugh came from Qiu Xingyi's mouth. The instant the thick rock wall was split open, he immediately flashed in front of Yang Zongyun. A powerful and fierce palm force rapidly surged in his palm, like a powerful wave of light that moved wantonly. Without any hesitation, Qiu Xingyi's majestic palm force surged downwards. The space trembled, and the blinding wave of light completely enveloped Yang Zongyun. The latter's expression changed. He did not expect Qiu Xingyi's strength to be so strong. Gritting his teeth, an astonishing true yuan surged out of Yang Zongyun's body like a mountain torrent. Between his arms, a dazzling golden light rose like the sunset. "Don't get cocky too early, I'm going to teach you a lesson." Very evidently, Yang Zongyun wanted to take Qiu Xingyi's attack head-on. Seeing his opponent like this, the corners of Qiu Xingyi's mouth curved imperceptibly. However, just at this moment, a layer of brown light suddenly rippled in the air. Crack, like the rubbing sound of mud and stone, another thick rock wall suddenly rose in the air, blocking between Qiu Xingyi and Yang Zongyun. Without any expectations, Qiu Xingyi's palm solidly slammed into the rock wall. Bang! A dull and heavy sound mixed with a brown light wave rippled towards the surroundings. The entire stone wall suddenly shook violently, and tiny cracks appeared on it. But even so, the rock wall did not show any signs of exploding. The hearts of the people below were shocked, and they unconsciously swept their gazes towards the calm young figure behind Yang Zongyun. Crack! Immediately after, the rock wall in front of Qiu Xingyi's palm rapidly rose up with earth spikes. Like sharp spikes emerging from the earth, they quickly became sharp and slender, and attacked Qiu Xingyi in the opposite direction. Qiu Xingyi's expression changed slightly. The cold light in his eyes was fleeting, and an even more powerful and violent palm force surged out of his body. A dense scarlet light surged out, accompanied by an extremely hot aura. Bang! With an explosive sound, the wall with earth spikes once again exploded in the air. The surging hot air spread out like a tide, like an exploding fireball, once again attacking Yang Zongyun. Qiu Xingyi's expression changed again and again. However, at this moment, an extremely majestic aura whistled through the air. Bang! A loud and heavy sound reverberated through the air. The dazzling light was like the collision of stars. A violent storm poured down, and Qiu Xingyi's body was directly shaken and sent flying backwards. Duh! He then landed on the roof of a pavilion on the north side of the Wind Slasher platform. His handsome face was suffused with a thick chill. Senior brother Qiu, the disciples of the martial sect were all shocked. They all drew their swords and flashed to Qiu Xingyi's surroundings. In Star River City, the disciples of the Han Yun sect and the other sects couldn't help but squint their eyes. In front of Yang Zongyun, there was a calm figure with an extraordinary bearing. Not a bad idea, but it's a pity it's still a bit lacking. Yang Zongxiao's expression carried traces of mockery as he looked at Qiu Xingyi's dark face with a pondering attitude. However, I need to remind you that if you think you can stop me by taking down Zongyun, you're too naive. Yang Zongxiao's arrogant gaze directly ignored the people of the martial sect. His words filled with disdain. 5 years ago, you couldn't even take 10 of my moves. 5 years later, you, who have been personally chased out of the sacred clan by me, what right do you have to stand in front of me and raise your head? Every word was like a needle, causing people's hearts to tremble. All of the martial sect disciples looked at Qiu Xingyi with incomparably complicated expressions. There was shock, disbelief, and also a trace of pity. No wonder the usually easygoing and calm Qiu Xingyi would lose his composure like this. So there was an unknown grudge between him and Yang Zongxiao. Looking at Qiu Xingyi, whose aura was cold, Yang Zongyun, who was beside Yang Zongxiao, was full of arrogance and mockery. What's the point? Previously, I gave you some face, but you didn't want it. Now you're asking for it. Considering that you used to be a member of the Five Elements clan, take the motley crew behind you and scram. Hearing this, the people of the martial sect were instantly enraged. Bastard, who are you calling a motley crew? Humph, so what if it's the sacred clan? At most, we'll fight it out with you. Fight it out. Immediately, the disciples of the martial sect wanted to join forces and break out into a group battle with the people of the Five Elements clan. All of you, stand down. However, Qiu Xingyi stopped the people below with a stern shout. Wang Li, Wu Yan, Qi Qianying and the others' gazes slightly narrowed, their expressions solemn. Chu Hen's gaze was also slightly raised, and there was a hint of deeper meaning in it. Qiu Xingyi raised his head, his tone revealing the sharpness and determination of a sword. This is a grudge between me and him. Martial sect disciples, without my orders, no one is allowed to make a move. Qiu Xingyi glanced sideways and shouted in a low voice. Everyone's expression changed immediately. At this moment, Qiu Xingyi's body was emitting a hostility that they had never seen before. Just as he said, this was a grudge between him and the Five Elements clan. Since it was a private matter, it was not up to others to interfere. Yang Zongxiao raised his eyebrow in surprise. Interesting. Qiu Xingyi's battle intent that kept rising was released from his body. It was as though there was a ball of fire burning in his eyes. Yang Zongxiao, I've been waiting for this battle for a long time. Boom! A monstrous, majestic flame burst out from Qiu Xingyi's body. Two light cyan water pillars soared into the sky like two water dragons. The pavilion on his body was instantly covered with cracks, and then it shattered into pieces. Sensing the hatred and anger from Qiu Xingyi's body, the corner of Yang Zongxiao's lips curled up slightly. He raised his finger and teased, I'm really looking forward to seeing how much you've grown in these 5 years. Whoosh! The moment his words left his mouth, a circle of rippling light appeared where Qiu Xingyi was standing. In the next instant, he suddenly appeared in front of Yang Zongxiao. As you wish. Vortex Extreme Blade. The heavens and earth shook and the space trembled. A vortex that could stir the heavens and earth immediately enveloped the area where Yang Zongxiao and Yang Zongyan were. The vortex's rotation speed was extremely fast. The layers of vortexes were like rows of blades. Yang Zongxiao and Qiu Xingyun, who were in the center of the vortex, were like the center of a meat grinder. Yang Zongyan's brows were tightly furrowed, and he seemed a little anxious. On the other hand, Yang Zongxiao's face was as calm as the water in an ancient well. I still like to use the power of water. Just as the vortex was about to devour the last bit of space, Yang Zongxiao's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. He then raised his palm, and a golden sword ray exploded from his palm. The golden broadsword, like a divine ray that could split the sky, swept up a piercingly cold, killing intent, and solidly struck one side of the vortex. Bang! A heavy sound spread out, like a giant curtain being torn apart. A several-meter-wide hole was immediately blasted open on one side of the vortex. You go out first, Yang Zongxiao said indifferently. Yang Zongyan nodded. Without any hesitation, he directly turned into a ray of light and darted out of the hole, retreating from the battlefield. Chapter 1303. Rumble. The raging whirlpool blades engulfed the area where Yang Zongxiao was like a destructive storm. The layers of water blades were like guillotines used to mince meat, and they quickly cut towards their opponent from all directions. Strong winds blew and water flowed. Everyone below was shocked. As expected of a battle between the strong on the honor list. They used such a terrifying move right off the bat. Bang! An intense, dull sound reverberated above everyone's heads. Countless terrifying whirlpool blades immediately intertwined, forming an incomparably dense and intense collision. The space distorted, and the heavens and earth trembled uneasily. The wantonly splashing water caused huge waves in the air. Looking at Yang Zongxiao, who was instantly drowned, the eyes of the martial sect disciples lit up. Beautiful! One hit. However, just as they finished speaking, there was a bang sound, and a young figure shimmering with a brilliant golden light suddenly flew out from the chaotic waves. What? The people from the martial sect instantly clenched their fists, and their expressions were solemn. Humph, how foolish and laughable! Yang Zongyun, who had already retreated from the battle, sneered in disdain. There seemed to be a golden light surrounding Yang Zongxiao's body. The light was like a shadow, dancing around him. It was like a divine protective light, repelling all the attacks outside of his body. Mystic light gold spirit. Qiu Xingyi, who stood proudly in the air, narrowed his eyes and murmured. Yang Zongxiao raised his eyebrows and replied indifferently. Yes. Qiu Xingyi gritted his teeth, and coldness surged in his eyes. Being from the Five Elements clan, he naturally knew how special the mystic light gold spirit was. This was a powerful secret technique that combined offense and defense. It was formless and was derived from the metal energy of the Five Elements energy. However, only the disciples of the Five Elements divine clan had the qualifications to cultivate such a high-level secret art. Moreover, Qiu Xingyi was an exiled member of the Five Elements clan. Yang Zongxiao using the mystic light gold spirit to deal with him was like a different kind of humiliation. The people from the martial sect below frowned inwardly, and their expressions were solemn. Putting aside his ranking on the wind cloud list, Qiu Xingyi was far weaker than Yang Zongxiao based on his status in the five-element race. It could be said that Yang Zongxiao knew everything that Qiu Xingyi knew. Qiu Xingyi had no idea what Yang Zongxiao knew. He seemed to be able to judge who was superior in an instant. But now that things had come to this, neither of them had any intention of stopping. Since you've chosen to act, don't disappoint me. Yang Zongxiao proudly chuckled. Soon after, two fingers on his right hand came together, and a gorgeous speck of golden light blossomed from his fingertip. Buzz! Along with the slightly trembling space, a beam of golden light flew out and exploded. A blazing stream of air stacked up, and the beam of golden light rapidly transformed into a sharp sword. At the same time, a layer of solid flames surged out, and in the blink of an eye, the sharp sword became as red as a soldering iron golden flame blade. A piercingly cold and sharp murderous aura permeated the entire area. The fierce aura was like a beam of rainbow that traversed the sky. The crowd below the wind-slaying platform could not help but sigh in admiration. It's the fusion of gold and fire powers. Yes, the Five Elements Sacred Clan possesses 5 different types of power. Some people with higher bloodline talent can combine these powers and unleash them. The destructive power it explodes out far surpasses that of a single Five Elements power. Before the people below finished speaking, the golden flame divine sword, which emitted the power to tear the heavens and split the earth, had already rushed in front of Qiu Xingyi. Its speed and the strength of the aura made it impossible for anyone to dodge. Hiss! The red, scorching sword directly pierced through Qiu Xingyi's chest. The faces of the martial sect disciples paled. Chu Hen, Wang Li, Wu Yan and the others also frowned. Before the crowd could react, with a bang they saw Qiu Xingyi's body explode into raindrops that filled the sky. Water clone. Yang Zongyun, who had already returned to the platform, muttered in a low voice. Splash! Water droplets fluttered randomly between heaven and earth, forming a small-scale storm in the chaotic cyclone. The area of the storm quickly enveloped Yang Zongxiao. The latter looked to the side, and a frivolous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. When did you come over? Guess, a similarly playful voice entered Yang Zongxiao's ears. The hearts of the crowd below focused, only to see a ghost-like elegant figure suddenly appear behind Yang Zongxiao. That is? How did he do it? God and Ghost did not notice. Without giving the crowd any time to think, Qiu Xingyi, who had quietly appeared behind Yang Zongxiao, directly stacked his palms together, and the power of a mountain torrent rapidly surged between his fingers. If you underestimate your opponent too much, you will suffer greatly. The constantly blossoming dazzling light quickly filled the corner of Yang Zongxiao's eyes, as well as the visual nerves of the crowd. Bang! The incomparably heavy sound of the collision caused the sky above the wind slasher platform to shake. A powerful wave of air swept out in all directions. The next moment, a figure surrounded by golden light and shadow smashed downwards at an extremely fast speed. Rumble! The violent impact caused a section of the wall outside the wind slasher platform to explode. Rubble flew everywhere, and the wall exploded. All sorts of violent shock waves wantonly spread out. The destroyed wall was like a dam that had been broken by a flood. The ground quickly caved in, and countless cracks appeared. Feeling the fierceness of the power, the people gathered nearby immediately retreated to avoid being caught in the crossfire. River of Swamp. The second wave of attack followed closely. Qiuxingyi, who was high up in the sky, did not plan to give his opponent any chance to breathe. His left hand was surrounded by a circle of water-like green ripples, and his right hand was pinched with a brown earth-colored halo. He clasped his palms together, and the power of water and earth instantly interweaved and fused. In an instant, the area around Yang Zhongxiao immediately caved in, like a moving river of quicksand. All of the rubble, walls, and plants were all sucked into the swamp. Rumble! The ground continued to collapse, and the walls beside the wind slasher platform also disintegrated. In the blink of an eye, 100 feet wide swamp river quietly formed. It was like a monster that swallowed everything, drowning everything. Seeing this, the martial sect people could not help but reveal expressions of joy. Good job, senior brother Qiu. Too powerful. Take advantage of the situation and quickly finish him off. On the side of the Five Elements clan, everyone sneered. A group of naive fellows. Yang Zhongxiao mocked disdainfully. At this moment, a layer of emerald green light appeared inside the swamp river. Following that, a tender green sprout emerged from the swamp river. The green sprout grew at an extremely fast pace, and branches, long vines, and green leaves grew out at a speed that was thousands of times faster. In just a blink of an eye, the swamp river was instantly covered with sturdy long vines. And in the center of the lush plants, a flower bud the size of a house bloomed. Yang Zhongxiao, who was surrounded by the mystic light gold spirit, once again appeared in front of everyone, unscathed. Hiss! Everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the people from the Star River City and Han Yun clan could not help but squint their eyes. What a shocking bloodline ability! Wu Yan, who was standing next to Chu Hen, sighed softly. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai, who were behind them, also shook their heads. Even though the tree soul holy body that the siblings possessed was also the limit of the wood attribute bloodline. But compared to the Five Elements holy body, it was too simple. The difference between a normal holy body and a supreme holy body was obvious. Wood can subdue earth. Don't you know that? Yang Zhongxiao, who was standing in the flower bud, looked at the young figure in the sky calmly. With just the water and earth that you're proficient in, I'm afraid you won't be able to defeat me. His calm words were filled with disdain. Qiuxingyi's slightly sunken eyes flashed coldly. I'm sorry, that was before. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, huge vines once again shot out from the swamp river. For example, the intertwining dragon pythons were covered in sharp thorns. Chapter 1304. Rumble, the gigantic vines that blotted out the sky and covered the earth set off a monstrous killing intent. They were like the tentacles of the deep-sea giant octopus that raised a huge wave that shot into the sky. They slammed fiercely towards Yang Zhongxiao, who was in the middle from different directions. You know how to use the power of wood. While Yang Zhongxiao was slightly surprised, he crossed his arms in front of him and formed a sword finger. In the next instant, the profound light gold spirit that was revolving around him shone brilliantly. It was like a golden dragon that had been awakened as it soared and circled around him. Whoosh! An intense rumbling sound rang out, and the gorgeous golden dragon immediately erupted with a spiraling rain of swords that blossomed outwards. Whoosh, 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 10,000 swords shot out at the same time, emitting endless penetrative power of the golden swords, covering the sky and covering the earth, crashed into the huge tentacle vine. The incomparably sharp swords shot out in all directions. One after another, the huge vines were cut into several pieces. The neat cuts caused the broken vines to fly in the air and fall to the ground. Metal can subdue wood. Below the wind-slaying platform, someone muttered in a low voice. The power of the 5 elements reinforced and countered each other. Wood could absorb the nutrients in the soil to grow and strengthen itself, and the sharp blade could cut through trees and vegetation. Qiu Xingyi and Yang Zongxiao used this attribute of the power of the 5 elements to neutralize and deal with the opponent's attack. While everyone was suffering from the visual impact, they could not help but secretly marvel at the magic of the power of the 5 elements. The swords were like flying swords, piercing through the sky. In the blink of an eye, all the huge vines that were smashing towards Yang Zongxiao were cut into pieces. "Looks like your use of the power of wood isn't that good," Yang Zongxiao said mockingly. "Not necessarily." Qiu Xingyi's eyes flashed with a cold light. As his voice fell, a loud boom resounded, and the swamp beneath him exploded once more. The corner of Yang Zongxiao's eyes slanted as a trace of surprise flashed across his face. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he directly leaped up and dashed away. Just as Yang Zongxiao flashed away, a ferocious bloody mouth burst out from the ground. The mouth was filled with sharp teeth, and it swallowed the huge flower bud that Yang Zongxiao was standing on just now. A foul wind wreaked havoc, and a cold current rose and fell. The expressions of the spectators changed slightly. It was a giant man-eating flower that was hundreds of meters tall. The strange and huge body was covered in barbs, like a terrifying prehistoric giant beast. After swallowing the flower bud, the gigantic man-eating flower once again opened its abyss-like mouth and faced Yang Zongxiao, who was in the sky. A blazing aura surged out from the inside. Qiu Xingyi joined his palms together and shouted in a deep voice, "Don't think that you're the only one who knows the power of the 5 elements." Hua! In an instant, waves of heat surged into the sky, and the giant man-eating flower spewed out a majestic fire dragon from its mouth. The sky was immediately eclipsed by the light. The temperature between heaven and earth rose rapidly. The Inferno Divine Dragon was unstoppable. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws at Yang Zongxiao. The latter's slightly cold eyes reflected the scorching crimson flames. His throat rolled as he muttered to himself, "So that's how it is." Bang! In the next second, a surging wave of flames exploded above everyone's heads. The crimson flames dyed the sky and swept in all directions. Fireballs of various sizes fell from the sky, and the chaotic scene resembled the explosion of meteorites. The martial sect disciples were extremely nervous. All of them stared at the sky that was stirred up by the firestorm. Other than Pei Yi, who had a disdainful and indifferent expression, the rest were rather nervous. Such a powerful attack should be effective, Wu Yan said in a deep voice. Humph! Pei Yi glanced at him frivolously. How naive. If Yang Zongxiao was so easy to deal with, Qiu Xingyi wouldn't look like he saw a ghost. Senior brother Pei Yi, why are you speaking up for an outsider? One of the martial sect disciples replied in dissatisfaction. I'm just stating the facts. Pei Yi crossed his arms in front of him, not caring at all. Wu Yan, Wang Li, and the rest could not help but frown slightly, but they did not say anything. Chu Hen's eyes were filled with deep meaning. Although Pei Yi was boosting others' morale, it was also the truth. Based on the current situation, Qiu Xingyi seemed to be attacking more than defending. On the surface, he seemed to have the upper hand, but he did not manage to suppress Yang Zongxiao. If Qiu Xingyi wanted to defeat Yang Zongxiao, it would be difficult. Whoosh! At the same time, the chaotic firestorm spread in all directions, and a figure with a steady aura slowly retreated from the wave of flames. Everyone's eyes narrowed slightly, and they saw that Yang Zongxiao's body was covered with a layer of brown armor. Some parts of the armor were already scorched red, and from afar it looked like a soldering iron. An armor condensed from the energy of Earth. Someone below said. The 5 elemental energy is really powerful. It has both offense and defense, and the rotation of the 5 elemental energy is indeed a bloodline boundary energy that makes people jealous. Who said it wasn't? Watching the exciting battle between Qiu Xingyi and Yang Zongxiao, countless people were impressed by the powerful 5 elemental energy that they possessed. However, at the same time when Yang Zongxiao reappeared, Qiu Xingyi's next attack followed closely. Whoosh, leaving a series of afterimages in the air, Qiu Xingyi's speed was as fast as lightning, and the shocking force of his palm descended from the sky like a raging sea dragon. Looking at Qiu Xingyi, who was surrounded by a green cyclone and a scarlet ring of fire, a hint of shock flashed through Yang Zongxiao's eyes again. Water and fire, not only Yang Zongxiao, but even Yang Zongyun, Wang Li, Chu Hen, and the others outside were surprised. Everyone knew that among the 5 elemental energy, water and fire countered each other, and were difficult to fuse. Once these 2 different types of energy fused, they would be weakened before they could be released. In a situation where 1 + 1 was added, it would be less than 2. It was hard to understand why Qiu Xingyi would release these 2 5 elemental energy at the same time. There was no time to guess Qiu Xingyi's intentions. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Yang Zongxiao. He stretched out both palms, and the fire and water energy converged in front of him like 2 pythons. Hesitation flashed through Yang Zongxiao's eyes, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Hee, I'm very curious what kind of surprise you can give me. Bang! As he spoke, an earth-shattering, heavy sound exploded high up in the sky. The deafening sound was not weaker than the clash of thunder. In an instant, the scalding waves of air surged in all directions like a tsunami. A circle of white cyclone shock waves swept out between the 2 of them, causing the space to distort unsteadily. This is? The Martial Sect, Galaxy City, the 5 Elements clan, the Han Yun clan, and the others all widened their eyes. The shock on their faces became even more intense. Bang! A crisp sound rang out, and under everyone's shocked gazes, the earth armor on Yang Zongxiao's body shattered into pieces. What? At this moment, the Martial Sect disciples all clenched their fists, their faces filled with excitement. Even Chu Hen could not help but narrow his eyes. There were no tangible flames, and there were no clear ripples. The attack that Qiu Xingyi had just unleashed was Qi. It's actually water Qi. Astonishment, surprise, and surprise. It was written all over the faces of countless people. Using fire to compress the high-temperature gas that evaporated from water, and then instantly unleash it. Qiu Xingyi can actually do that. As expected of the number 1 genius in the martial sect. What a strange idea. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the 2 people high up in the sky had already separated from the fierce palm energy. Without a doubt, Qiu Xingyi obviously had the upper hand in this attack. The shattered pieces of the earth armor danced in the sky. Yang Zongxiao's eyes were cold as he retreated from the sky. Although his expression was still as calm as before, the way he looked at Qiu Xingyi had changed a little. Whoosh! Subsequently, Qiu Xingyi pressed both of his palms forward, and a ball of cool water quickly gathered in front of him. When the ball of water expanded to a diameter of several tens of meters, a scorching hot flame quickly climbed up the surface of the ball of water. The inside of the ball of water immediately boiled, and it quickly turned into white steam. Not a single bit of steam leaked out, and it was completely sealed inside the water membrane. The outside of the water membrane rapidly expanded, like a ball that was constantly being inflated. Meanwhile, Qiu Xingyi directly used brute force to suppress the steam from leaking out, condensing all the power into a fixed space. In just 2 blinks of an eye, the green ball of water in front of Qiu Xingyi suddenly became a white balloon. The inside of the balloon was filled with extremely hot steam. The violent and restless aura directly sent chills down everyone's spines. It was like a flaming mountain that was about to explode. Humph. Looking at Yang Zongxiao, who had a serious expression, Qiu Xingyi's eyes flashed with a cold light. This is a move that I created myself. I hope you'll be satisfied. Buzz. The space trembled slightly, and a gentle yet powerful force directly pushed the ball of white steam toward Yang Zongxiao. The steam energy ball that was nearly 100 meters wide was like a falling star, rapidly approaching the other party. Yang Zongxiao's eyes flashed with coldness. He raised his sword finger, and a golden sword light shot out like an aurora. With the power to pierce through 3 armies, it accurately hit the steam energy ball. Boom! A deafening sound shook the entire place in the sky. At this moment, the sky was about to split open, and heat waves rushed into the sky. It was like an exploding star or a meteorite. Waves of surging airflow swept out in the sky above the wind slasher platform, setting off a layer of vortex storms. The incomparably hot airflow and steam filled the surroundings, enveloping the heavens and the earth. Everyone present felt a wave of heat invading their internal organs and meridians. A huge mushroom cloud of steam surged into the sky. The wind slasher platform and the surrounding buildings were shaken until they were covered in cracks and collapsed one after another. However, the steam came ferociously and disappeared quickly. The white mist quickly cooled down, forming a gray thundercloud that floated in the sky. In the sky, the 2 geniuses on the wind slasher list, who both had the bloodline limit of the sacred body of 5 elements, faced off against each other in the air. The battle of the wind and clouds, the battle of the wind and clouds. Every thought and action was enough to make people tremble in fear. Not a bad idea, but it's a pity that there are too many flaws, Yang Zongxiao said nonchalantly. His eyes widened, and a powerful golden light spilled out of his body. A pair of gorgeous light wings circled around his body, and he once again transformed into a dragon-like gold spirit profound light. The others present could not deny it. Even the martial sect disciples secretly shook their heads. Speaking of which, Qiu Xingyi's move was indeed unexpected. Moreover, the impact of the extremely compressed steam was absolutely terrifying. However, the most fatal point was that before the steam could reach the opponent, it would be intercepted. Just like earlier, it was hit by Yang Zongxiao's sword light midway, and it exploded in the sky, greatly reducing the area of impact. No matter how powerful the attack was useless if it could not hit the opponent. Qiu Xingyi stared coldly at the arrogant face in the area below. What a disgusting tone! Yang Zongxiao did not seem to care, and the playful look on his face became even more intense. 2 more moves. 2 more moves? Hearing these words, the hearts of everyone present were stunned. Very quickly, they understood what Qiu Xingyi was referring to. Back then, Qiu Xingyi was chased out of the 5 Elements clan by Yang Zongxiao, and Qiu Xingyi was defeated in just 10 moves. This time, Yang Zongxiao wanted to recreate history. Bastard! You're too much. The martial sect disciples were extremely furious. Qiu Xingyi's gaze gradually became sharp, like 2 sharp swords. He stared at the person who had humiliated him back then, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Ha 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 ha! Yang Zongxiao. Qiu Xingyi pointed at Yang Zongxiao. I'm afraid it's too early for you to be happy. Today, I won't let you get what you want. Buzz! Following Qiu Xingyi's words, a strange wave of energy spread out from Yang Zongxiao's surroundings. Everyone was shocked. 5 different colored lights appeared in 5 different directions around Yang Zongxiao. The lights turned into 5 eye-catching and beautiful words at a speed visible to the naked eye. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth. The 5 big words were separated from 5 different angles. Then, they connected and formed a pentagonal array with a diameter of about 300 feet. Dense and complicated runes of light started to spread out in the air, and then 5 enormous light curtains shot into the sky, forming 5 enormous barriers that sealed Yang Zongxiao within them. The golden light screen appeared the word gold. The green light screen appeared the word wood. The red light screen flashed the word fire. The green light screen appeared the word water. And the brown light screen swayed the word earth. Beautiful lights filled the space where Yang Zongxiao was. At this moment, the air flow inside seemed to have fallen into an unprecedented state of stillness. From afar, it looked like a luxurious palace of light floating in the air. This is. The hearts of the people present rose and fell along with the tides, fluctuating up and down. Yang Zongyun, who was standing in front of the Five Elements clan, clenched his fists and cried out in disbelief. Five Elements barrier, boom! The moment he said this, there was an uproar outside. The Five Elements barrier was a supreme and powerful sealing technique. Its strength was even stronger than the Xianyuan sealing technique of the War God Palace. It's actually the Five Elements barrier. Yang Zongxiao frowned for the first time. He looked at Qiu Xingyi in surprise through the golden light screen in front of him. The latter's eyes were burning with fighting spirit, and his aura soared to the sky. Do you really think that I want to use that technique to hurt you? At this moment, everyone's heart shook. He suddenly realized that the steam energy body that caused a huge commotion just now was just a feint to act as a cover. Qiu Xingyi's true goal was to use the steam as a cover to complete the Five Elements barrier. Everyone who understood was even more shocked and surprised. Such a huge commotion was actually just a cover. This Qiu Xingyi is indeed the #1 person in the martial sect. He's really a genius. Clang. At the same time, the wind and clouds in the sky changed. The dark thunderstorm began to roar in the sky. A majestic aura that was as majestic as Mount Tai came crashing down. Aurora shone, and countless dazzling seven-colored divine rainbows bloomed in the sky. An aura that made people's hearts palpitate spread out from Qiu Xingyi's body. Everyone's heart trembled along with the space in front of them. The pupils of Wu Yan, Wang Li, Pei Yi, and the other martial sect disciples shrank. Chapter 1305. This is the Eastern profound art. Looking at the seven-colored divine light that had appeared in the sky, the expressions of everyone on and below the wind-slaying platform changed drastically. Their faces were filled with shock. The wind and clouds changed as waves surged. A majestic aura that was comparable to a mountain exploded from Qiu Xingyi's body. His gaze was like a sharp blade that had been unsheathed, burning with battle intent. For example, the returning kings stared at Yang Zongxiao, who was within the Five Elements barrier. I've waited a long time for this moment. Every single word was like a clap of thunder. 5 different colored light barriers shone brightly, and the 5 sharp words metal, wood, water, fire, earth were even more dazzling. There seemed to be illusory chains intertwining in the air, locking down the inner space of the barrier. The inner area where Yang Zongxiao was seemed to have fallen into an unshakable state. The invisible pressure of the seal made it impossible for him to move. Only the profound light gold token outside his body released a flickering halo. Before Yang Zongxiao could come up with a countermeasure, the 7-colored light above the 9 heavens poured down like the radiance of the sun. In that instant, a heart-palpitating aura of destruction swept across the entire area. The Star River City, the Han Yun clan, the Five Elements clan, and many other geniuses all narrowed their eyes. This was especially so for the martial sect disciples. Their hearts surged as anxiety and nervousness appeared on their faces. Rumble, the sound of rolling thunder intertwined as a storm stirred up heaven and earth. Under countless gazes that were filled with shock, within the 7-colored sacred light that shone brightly, a giant blade that was glowing with a glazed azure light broke through the divine rainbow. An unparalleled aura of destruction and slaughter crushed the entire area. Chu Hen, who was below the wind-slaying platform, also had a cold look in his eyes as he focused on it. The glazed blade that was glowing with an azure light looked like a double-edged divine axe. The axe was more than 100 feet wide, and it was covered with a dazzling runic light that resembled lightning. At the same time, Qiu Xingyi's aura was like a monstrous flame, and a huge, towering figure quickly appeared behind him. The illusory figure was like a heaven-punishing war god who was in the midst of teleportation. He held a double-edged axe in his hands and exuded a power that could shake the stars. Yang Zongxiao, Qiu Xingyi roared in a stern voice. His furious aura shook the surrounding mountains and rivers. His eyes glowed with red light, revealing a frightening hostility. The humiliation from that day shall be returned today. The world trembled. The blood in everyone's body seemed to be boiling. Buzz, the towering illusory giant's arms exploded with the power of thunder. It raised its double-edged divine axes high up, flapped its wings of light, and chopped down towards Yang Zongxiao's seven-colored azure sharp blade, heaven and earth wound. East Mystery Chant. At this moment, the divine blade that was flickering with 7 colors stunned the sun, moon, and stars. Boom! Under the myriad of intertwining divine radiance, the divine blade axe was deeply embedded in the light screen of the 5 elements boundary. Under the huge axe blade, Yang Zongxiao was like a small boat in a storm. Bang! With a heavy explosion, the gold spirit profound light around Yang Zongxiao's body instantly exploded into countless light fragments. What? Such a terrifying power directly caused the faces of the 5 Elements clan to turn pale. The moment the gold spirit profound light was extinguished, Yang Zongxiao was completely exposed to the terrifying attack of the East Mystery Chant. Looking at the rapidly descending divine blade, his pupils abruptly shrank to the size of a needle. His entire face was illuminated until it became blurry. Bang! Boom! In an instant, the remaining power of the heaven-punishing strike, which was comparable to the collision of stars, exploded in the sky above the wind slasher platform. The sky turned dark, and the mountains and rivers lost their color. A surging and mighty shockwave, like a huge ripple, spread out in the void and swept in all directions. The 5 giant light screens suspended in the sky were the first to shatter. The uncontrollable shockwave was like a mountain torrent that had broken through a dam, the ground below caved in, and thick rocks of all sizes flew into the sky. The majestic wind slasher platform also cracked inch by inch, collapsing layer by layer. The people gathered on it quickly flew away, afraid that they would not be able to dodge in time and meet with an unexpected disaster, the 5 Elements barrier followed by the East Mystery Chant. Qiu Xingyi's trump card killing move directly shocked everyone present. Everyone was shocked, and their faces changed. Their eyes were filled with shock and fear. What a terrifying power! This destructive power is already comparable to the Saint King stage. Qiu Xingyi is really a genius that only appears once in 100 years. No wonder he could occupy the first place of the martial ancestor ranking for so many years. The divine radiance that filled the sky ravaged the wind slasher platform. In the blink of an eye, this ancient and magnificent building that had existed for tens of thousands of years was completely destroyed. Apart from the central platform in the middle where the key was placed, the rest of the place was already in ruins. Everyone looked at the scene before them in amazement. Even Lu Yindao, the genius on the WinCloud list who had never spoken before in front of the Galaxy City team, murmured in praise. The martial ancestor has produced a pretty good person. The way the people from Han Yun's sect looked at Qiu Xingyi had also changed. It's a waste of Qiu Xingyi's talent to stay in the martial ancestor. Yes, that's true. If he came to our Han Yun sect, I think he wouldn't just be ranked 46th on the WinCloud list. He might even be on equal footing with senior brother Izhou. That's possible. But then again, why isn't senior brother Izhou here yet? Who knows? Maybe he was delayed on the way. Compared to the people from the other sects who were amazed, the people from the martial ancestor were obviously more nervous. How was it? Did he win? I think so. Even a Saint King stage powerhouse might not be able to withstand such a powerful attack. That Yang Zongxiao's cultivation base is only at the imminent Saint King stage at most. He definitely won't be able to withstand senior brother Chio's full-force attack. On the five elements Saint Clan's side, their expressions seemed to be a little uncertain as well. Although they were not as anxious as the people from the martial ancestor sect, one could still see their doubts. Suddenly, at this moment, a strange fluctuation spread out from the void that was filled with chaotic energy. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Qiu Xingyi's expression changed slightly as well. Following that, a mocking laughter filled with deep meaning entered everyone's ears. Hee, you're really something. I almost died in your hands. The voice rose and swept out with a strong airflow. But don't forget who's the real orthodox clan of the Five Elements clan. Whoosh! A piercingly cold wave swept out in all directions. A figure shrouded in five-colored flowing light once again appeared before everyone's eyes in a domineering manner. What? He's fine. The people from the martial ancestors sect felt a buzz in their head. All of their faces turned pale, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. A deep sense of helplessness rose up in their hearts. At this moment, Yang Zhongxiao's entire body was emitting a domineering and forceful aura. A small pentagram talisman formation appeared below him. Each corner of the pentagram corresponded to the five runes of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth respectively. Outside his body, a layer of circular shield appeared. The shield's color kept changing. One moment it was dazzling gold, the next moment it was crimson like fire, and the next moment it was rippling with green patterns. When Qiu Xingyi saw this, an indescribable complexity appeared in his eyes. Five elemental shield. He mumbled softly. That's right. Yang Zhongxiao's face was filled with pride. Only orthodox clans have the right to cultivate the five elemental shield. As Yang Zhongxiao spoke, he raised his right arm. In his palm, five whirlpools were spinning rapidly like a lantern chasing after a horse. I've dragged this out for a long time. It's time for you to see my true ability. The time for his true ability. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Qiu Xingyi's eyes narrowed. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Zhongxiao raised his hand to the sky. In the next second, five dazzling beams of light suddenly appeared in the sky in front of Qiu Xingyi. The five beams of light were like divine arrows that pierced through the clouds. A series of dazzling lights exploded as they shot down from the sky, heading towards Qiu Xingyi at an extremely fast speed. Qiu Xingyi, who had already fallen into a weakened state, seemed to have lost the strength to defend himself. There was no chance for him to dodge. At the moment when the heavens and earth dimmed, beams of dazzling light pierced through Qiu Xingyi's body like sharp swords. Senior brother Qiu. The faces of the martial sect members changed drastically, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Some of the people around them secretly shook their heads, some sighed softly, and some sneered mockingly. Looks like there's still no accident. What a joke. There's a difference of 5 ranks on the leaderboard. Do you think it's that easy to overcome? Even Qiu Xingyi has fallen. The martial sect has no chance at all. They're already at the bottom of the leaderboard. The result will be the same with or without them. To the disciples of the martial sect, the flash of light seemed to be as long as a few hours. At the moment when the light disappeared, a figure with a silent aura landed shakily on a collapsed high platform. Senior brother Qiu? How are you? Senior brother Qiu, are you all right? A large number of martial sect disciples hurriedly gathered around him. However, Wang Li, Wu Yan and the rest stood where they were, shaking their heads and sighing. Their faces were filled with helplessness and desolation. Qiu Xingyi's expression was wooden and his eyes were dull. He stood where he was in a daze. Fresh blood continuously seeped out from the clothes in front of his chest. He had lost. He had lost again. It was as if the scene of him being expelled from the Five Elements clan had replayed itself. After a few years, he had lost to Yang Zhongxiao once again. The person who had caused him to bear so many years of humiliation. The cold wind was bleak and there was a bone-piercing chill. The martial sect disciples had never seen Qiu Xingyi so desolate and sorrowful. It was an unbearable feeling of helplessness. Qiu Xingyi had been defeated. Even their most trusted leader had been defeated. The road ahead seemed to be pitch black, and they could not see any hope. A deathly silent atmosphere enveloped the entire martial sect team. Everyone was as sorrowful as Qiu Xingyi. "I won't kill you," Yang Zongxiao said indifferently, "because you don't even have the right to die by my hands." Qiu Xingyi's body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Behind him, Qi Qianying, Zhao Qingkai and the rest frowned. They wanted to go up and help him up, but in the end they stopped where they were. To Qiu Xingyi, any word of concern was like a knife piercing his heart. "Ha ha ha ha, why bother? I gave you a chance before, but you only gave up after losing all your face." A bunch of mobs. Within the Five Elements clan, Yang Zongyan laughed heartily, his words filled with mockery. Without taking another look at Qiu Xingyi, Yang Zongxiao stepped into the air above the wind slasher platform and said arrogantly, "Who else wants the key to this platform?" No one answered. In Galaxy City, the Han Yun clan team looked at each other, and many people subconsciously focused their gazes on Lu Yinda. With Qiu Xingyi's defeat, only Galaxy City's Lu Yinda, who was ranked 50th on the excellence list, was left. However, Lu Yinda had always been very calm. He was the same as the Galaxy City force, keeping a low profile. Yang Zongxiao calmly glanced at the people present and smiled. He then clenched his palm, and a powerful palm energy reached towards the high platform below. On the high platform, the barrier that sealed the key constantly glowed with a soft light. As cracks appeared on the surface of the barrier, the full appearance of the key inside was gradually revealed in the air. It was obvious that everyone present was moved, but no one dared to snatch it from Yang Zongxiao's hands. Crack! With a crisp sound, the barrier seal on the stone platform shattered into thousands of pieces. The three-dimensional, square-shaped key glowed with the charm of a treasure. Satisfied smiles appeared on Yang Zongxiao and the people from the Five Elements clan. However, just as Yang Zongxiao was about to put the key into his pocket, a bright and enchanting green ray of light suddenly shot through the sky and flew towards the stage. Zing! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing into the stone was especially clear, and everyone's heartstrings trembled. It was a dark green holy sword, like a ray of light in the dark night. Under everyone's gaze, it accurately pierced into the stone platform where the key was placed. Buzz! A powerful circle of sword qi spread out, and the glowing key immediately broke free from Yang Zongxiao's control, once again falling onto the platform. What's that? The sudden scene shocked everyone present. Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai and the others in the martial clan team felt their hearts skip a beat. Chapter 1306. Whoosh! The sharp sword aura was like ripples of light in the air. When the secret key fell back onto the stone platform, everyone's hearts trembled. The dark green Bai Ran sword flickered with divine light, and the blade flickered with lightning. The eyes of the martial faction disciples widened as they suddenly turned around to look at the young figure who had been standing there the entire time. Whoosh! The bleak cold wind was piercingly cold. Yang Zongxiao, the genius of the Five Elements clan, had a sword-like sharpness in his eyes. He looked to the side like an angry king, cold and emitting formless killing intent. Who is unsheathing his sword? In an instant, a powerful aura emanated from Yang Zongxiao's body. Like the might of a mountain, it pressed towards the back of the martial faction disciples. The faces of the martial faction disciples paled, and they all felt as if a heavy burden was placed on their shoulders. However, the young figure faced the heavy pressure and walked forward with a ramrod-straight posture. Every step was steady and steady, everyone's gazes were focused on the other party. Bewilderment, astonishment, and confusion. Who is this? He looks like a disciple of the martial faction. Of course I know he's a disciple of the martial faction, but why haven't I seen him before? Is he an idiot? What idiot? He's looking to die. The crowd was low and restless. The people of the Galaxy City and the Han Yun clan were also confused. Even Qiu Xingyi was defeated. Someone from the martial faction dares to come up? A disciple of the Han Yun clan expressed his surprise. Li Yuanliang narrowed his eyes and hesitated. He bit his lips and said, "This person looks familiar. I think I've seen him somewhere." Oh? The people of the Han Yun clan turned to look at Li Yuanliang in surprise. Senior Yuanliang knows him? He looks familiar, but I don't remember him, Li Yuanliang replied. Since Senior Yuanliang doesn't remember him, he's probably just an ordinary passerby. I really don't know where he got the courage to show his sword to Yang Zongxiao. Let's watch first. Maybe there'll be a surprise. Most of the people looked as if they were watching a show, expressing that this sudden turn of events was really unexpected. However, the disciples of the martial sect were extremely anxious after recovering from their shock. Junior brother Chuhen, what's going on? Wang Li, Wu Yan and the others exchanged glances with each other. A strange light flashed across their eyes. Wait a moment. Humph. Pei Yi sneered with disdain and snorted disdainfully towards this. Under the gazes of the crowd, Chu Hen walked steadily to the front of the Wu Zone group. He raised his head slightly, his pitch-black eyes filled with calmness, neither arrogance nor impatience. The top figure ranked 41st on the wind cloud list stared at him without any fear. As soon as their gazes met, a ring of restless air current vibrated in the air. Yang Zongxiao's gaze turned slightly cold as a sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Interesting, are you planning to stand up for Qiu Xingyi? The people of the martial sect were shocked again and again. They could clearly sense traces of killing intent from Yang Zongxiao's tone. At this moment, Qiu Xingyi's slightly weak and gloomy voice was heard. Come back. His face was pale as he gritted his teeth and shouted in a deep voice, "This is a grudge between me and the Five Elements clan. It has nothing to do with you. Don't you dare interfere." As he spoke, Qiu Xingyi's eyes were filled with anger and unwillingness. However, Chu Hen had no intention of withdrawing from Qiu Xingyi's angry rebuke. He raised his eyebrows and replied calmly, "I can't be bothered to interfere in your grudge. However, I'm only interested in the key." Wow! As soon as he said this, the crowd burst into an uproar again. Fighting for the key from Yang Zongxiao? Where did he get the courage from? Almost everyone's shock instantly turned into deep disdain and mockery. Fighting for the key with a genius on the Windcloud list? Is he worthy? Could it be that he's stronger than Qiu Xingyi? Stop joking. In the entire martial sect, only Qiu Xingyi is on the Windcloud list. The others are nothing. This person is most likely crazy. Ha 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 ha, isn't it good to be alive? Yang Zongyun, who was standing not far behind Yang Zongxiao, mocked. He stood up and pointed at Chu Hen. You don't have the right to fight with my brother. If you insist on seeking death, I'll grant your wish. Chu Hen's eyelids lifted slightly, his expression still calm. Whatever. Humph, you're looking to die. Yang Zongyun's eyes were filled with killing intent. Without saying anything else, he raised a majestic aura that soared into the sky and pounced towards Chu Hen. Buzz, the surging scarlet flames were like a tide. In an instant, the area within 100 meters of where Chu Hen was instantly turned into a sea of fire. Shortly after, Yang Zongyun moved and thousands of golden lights sprinkled down. Nameless person die. Zeng, zeng. A series of sharp sounds rang out. The beautiful golden light was like a brilliance that pierced through the clouds, turning into a sky full of cold sword shadows, accompanied by a murderous aura that could destroy everything. Countless sword shadows slashed towards the young figure in the sea of fire. Not good. Junior brother Chu Hen? Hurry up and help. Seeing such a powerful killing move, the martial sect disciples could not help but feel anxious. However, in the next second, a majestic aura, like a huge wave, suddenly rose up from below the wind slasher platform. accompanied by a scorching wave of air. The sea of fire surrounding Chu Hen was like a blossoming sea of flowers, instantly exploding from the center. The sword shadows that filled the sky, which were exuding endless killing intent, were instantly shattered by a circle of almost transparent shockwaves. This is? Everyone was shocked, especially Yang Zongyun. He felt that the aura below was as stable and reliable as an unshakable mountain. This guy, without waiting for Yang Zongyun to unleash an even more powerful force with a swoosh sound, a black shadow suddenly rushed out from the shattered sword shadows. That black shadow was like a ghost, as fast as lightning. Yang Zongyun had no time to react at all, and the shadow had already arrived in front of him. Yang Zongyun's pupils faintly trembled. That shadow was actually a human-shaped shadow. The shadow threw out a punch. It was as steady as the ripples on the surface of water, and the surrounding air faintly rippled with a ripple-shaped halo. It was a seemingly ordinary punch, and one could not feel any power from it. Bang! An incomparably heavy explosion reverberated in the air, and a powerful black halo shock wave was immediately set off. The sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly. The power that exploded out was like a mountain torrent, blooming in the air above the wind slasher platform. The huge shock wave surged over. Yang Zongyun's eyes were about to split open, and his facial features were twisted. He was like a falling rock, dragging a beam of light in the air, heavily smashing into the ground. Rocks shattered, and the ground caved in. Chapter 1307. Rumble, the mountains and rivers shook, and the earth cracked. Rocks were mixed with the dust in the air, and flew around recklessly. The battle that ended in an instant shocked everyone present. The Five Elements clan, Galaxy City, Han Yun clan, and the other geniuses all had their eyes wide open, their faces aghast. Instant kill. It didn't give anyone any time to prepare. The battle ended in an instant. The martial sect disciples were even more dumbfounded, including Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the others. They all looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Although Chu Hen had won the championship of the sect battle before, Yang Zongyun's strength surpassed Pei Yi, Wang Li, and the others. Moreover, Chu Hen and Pei Yi had fought for hundreds of rounds before winning the championship. And now, Yang Zongyun couldn't even take one move from Chu Hen. This scene was a huge blow to everyone. Wu Yan, on the other hand, was able to calm down a little. After all, he had personally seen Chu Hen kill Lu Minghong, who was ranked 49th on the honor list. He narrowed his eyes, and couldn't help but nod and sigh. Hua. The cold wind whistled, and the fire was extinguished. On the high platform, Chu Hen still stood proudly in his original position with a perfectly straight posture. A black light faintly floated around his body. His pair of deep eyes were like the stars in the ninth heaven, glittering brightly. At this moment, everyone looked at each other with cautious and vigilant eyes. Yang Zongxiao coldly glanced at Yang Zongyun, who was lying on the pile of rocks and covered in blood. A layer of frost immediately appeared on his cold and arrogant face. "Brat, state your name," he shouted in a low voice. Chu Hen slightly nodded, and light shot out from his eyes. Martial sect, Chu Hen. It was sonorous and powerful, and resounding. A low and deep commotion rose in the surroundings. Almost everyone was unfamiliar with this name. Only a few people had heard of the news of the champion of the sect battle. It really is the rookie king of the martial sect. What? Rookie? He's the newest disciple recruited by the martial sect? That's what the rumors say. It's really hard to believe. The air was filled with a restless cold air. Chu Hen and Yang Zongxiao faced off in the air. Anyone could sense the anxious and tense atmosphere. Hee. Yang Zongxiao laughed. The curve on his face was as sharp as a scimitar. I have to admit, you have triggered my killing intent. Compared to Qiu Xingyi, you are the first person I want to kill today. As soon as he said that, everyone in the room felt a chill run down their spines. The expressions of the disciples of the martial sect immediately became extremely solemn. Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Yan, and the rest were ready to fight to the death. But there was no fear on Chu Hen's face. He raised his hand slightly and replied calmly, "Please advise me." "As you wish," along with his voice, a majestic force that could topple mountains and overturn the seas poured down from the sky above the wind-slaying platform. Yang Zongxiao raised the might of a mountain as he swept towards Chu Hen below. As he moved, both of Yang Zongxiao's palms extended downwards, and a circle of complex brown mysterious runes spread out from his palms. Rumble. In an instant, the high platform that Chu Hen was standing on immediately collapsed. The faces of the martial faction that were gathered on it changed. Just as they were about to respond, they were stopped by Wu Yan's shout. "Let's all retreat first. Let Chu Hen fight alone." But Zhao Qingyi clenched her fists, feeling that something was wrong. "Stop talking nonsense, retreat immediately." Wu Yan ordered the rest to retreat while helping Wang Li to bring the injured Qiu Xingyi away from the battlefield. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the stone platform that was originally only left with half collapsed and shattered into pieces. Following that, with Chu Hen as the center, the ground around him also split apart. A frightening pressure gathered and 4 huge stone walls quickly rose from the ground. "Great Earth Enchantment!" Yang Zongxiao shouted in a deep voice. The huge stone walls instantly rose up to 100 feet, directly sealing off Chu Hen's escape route. Chu Hen, who was inside the enchantment, had a serious look in his eyes. Before he could fly up and leave, a brown light curtain completely sealed off the exit above his head. Hiss hiss. Following that, mysterious and strange runes quietly appeared on the 4 walls inside the enchantment. The mysterious runes intertwined with each other, like ancient characters. Following that, a large wolf head that was dozens of meters wide rose from the center of each wall. The wolf head opened its ferocious fangs, and a wave of extremely hot air rapidly surged out from within. Chu Hen's slightly contracted pupils reflected the incomparably domineering scarlet fireballs. The temperature inside the stone walls suddenly rose, causing the space to distort. Molten tyrannical flame. Boom! In that instant, the monstrous wave of heat that shot into the sky was like an erupting volcano, violently and uncontrollably leaking out from the inside of the 4 stone walls. A vast wave of heat spread out in all directions along the exit above the stone walls. The heavens and earth changed color, and wherever the wave of heat passed, the earth was dyed dark red. The surrounding people were all secretly shocked. Although the temperature inside and outside the wind slasher platform was extremely hot, everyone felt a faint chill down their spines. Yang Zongxiao had used such a ruthless move right from the start. It was hard to imagine how flustered Chu Hen, who was trapped within the stone walls, was. Such a tyrannical flame attack was no different from being in the magma of the Earth's core. Can junior brother Chu Hen really do it? Some of the martial ancestor disciples asked worriedly. "I don't know." Almost everyone furrowed their brows, their hearts heavy. "The result of standing out is self-destruction," Pei Yi said indifferently with a slightly mocking tone. He looked coldly at the scene in front of him, a trace of hatred in his tone. "Senior brother Pei, your words are too chilling. Although you have some personal grudges with junior brother Chu Hen, our current situation is that we need to unite against the outside world. How can you boost his morale?" Zhao Qingkai retorted unhappily. Pei Yi frowned slightly and glanced at Zhao Qingkai from the corner of his eye. He crossed his arms in front of him and replied disapprovingly, "You don't have to listen to me if you don't like it. You have no right to lecture me, you." Zhao Qingkai was so angry that he stomped his feet. He wanted to retaliate, but was stopped by his elder brother, Zhao Qingyi. "All right, that's enough. I believe that Chu Hen will be able to handle it." Before he had even finished speaking, the raging flames within the giant wall suddenly and rapidly decreased. Hiss! A cloud of white steam spread out from within. "What's going on?" The spectators could not help but be stunned. The originally scorching temperature dropped rapidly. After returning to normal temperature, it continued to drop rapidly. Soon after, a thick layer of ice crystals formed on the surface of the 4 stone walls. A chilly cyclone spread out in all directions, expelling the high temperature and sealing it in ice. What is this power? In the Han Yun-sek's team, Sword Finger Li Yuanliang frowned slightly, confusion surging on his face. He vaguely felt that the aura of this power was somewhat familiar. Hiss! In the next instant, a heavy and violent explosion rang out from within the Earth Spirit formation. Suddenly, the incomparably thick stone wall was covered in cracks. As the cracks increased, there was a bang. With a loud cracking sound, countless strong and tough thorny vines extended out from the inside of the huge wall, like tens of thousands of octopus tentacles. The vines grew and spread from underground, breaking through the stone wall uncontrollably and invading the ground. Wood elemental power. He also knows about the power of the 5 elements? Someone outside exclaimed. Chapter 1308. This is Sun Luo's power. Looking at the magnificent earth vines breaking through the stone wall barrier, Li Yuanliang from the Han Yun-sek's team furrowed his brows and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Li Yuanliang was more familiar with the aura of this power than anyone else. Not only had he seen it with his own eyes, but he had even grasped a part of it. Hearing Li Yuanliang's words, the Han Yun-sek's people beside him were also shocked. The power of the Devil Clan's Sun Luo King? Where did this kid come from? Could it be that he obtained the power of the 4 spirits like you, senior brother Yuanliang? Li Yuanliang narrowed his eyes and shook his head uncertainly. Based on what he knew, the 4 spirits of the wood attribute were in the hands of profound sun palaces Lu Wuyuat. As for the extremely cold ice profound energy earlier, it was the 4 soul spirits of the ice attribute. The 4 spirits were in the hands of young Master Qingqing, Xiaomeng. Thinking up to this point, Li Yuanliang immediately looked at the martial sect's disciples and subconsciously searched for Xiaomeng. However, before Li Yuanliang could think too much, the ground in front of him cracked rapidly. Countless majestic giant vines were like the tentacles of a horned dragon that could lift 1,000 caddies. The walls that were hundreds of meters tall were forcefully lifted up by the tens of thousands of giant vines. Rumble. The power shook the mountains and rivers, and it moved in all directions. Following that, dense dark blue electric arcs quickly flowed out from the crack. The power that was brewing from the collisions caused the interior of the wall to expand rapidly, then, boom! A loud explosion sounded as if the heavens and the earth had exploded. Countless majestic lightning pillars shocked the heavens and earth. They were like lightning dragons and giant pythons that broke through the thick stone wall. The lightning tribulation lightning net that exploded wantonly interweaved and directly crushed the barrier in all directions. The lightning tribulation was deafening as it tore the heavenly net apart. The sky was filled with shattered stone fragments mixed with incomparably chaotic air currents, and the dazzling lightning caused the sky to lose its color. Above the majestic giant vines, Chu Hen stood in the air with endless lightning around him. He was like a supreme king that controlled the punishment of the world, overflowing with domineering aura. His slender figure and the outline of his cold and handsome face seemed to have been carved by a knife. He had a kind of cold and arrogant temperament that could move one's soul. He is. Looking at this familiar figure again, Li Yuanliang suddenly thought of a person he met in the immortal devil tomb. He was instantly awakened. The memory that was not very deep was immediately awakened. It's him. Shock and surprise once again filled Li Yuanliang's face. The others around him cast him puzzled looks. Senior brother Yuanliang, do you really know him? Yes, I can't be wrong. Li Yuanliang's reply was especially resolute this time. His gaze was fixed on the young figure that was intertwined with lightning, and he said in a deep voice, "Over a year ago, I went to the immortal devil tomb to carry out a mission and met him. Back then, he was merely an ordinary passerby, and his cultivation was far from being as shocking as it is now. During the chaotic battle in the immortal Devil Tomb, although Chu Hen's performance was somewhat eye-catching, to Li Yuanliang at that time, it was not very shocking. The only reason Li Yuanliang remembered him was that when Chu Hen tried to rescue Bai Qianyu, he was directly killed by the 10-feathered demon blade Li Yanqing on the spot. Now it seemed that Li Yanqing did not kill the two of them with one slash. This is really shocking. I wonder what Li Yanqing's expression will be when he sees this. Li Yuanliang secretly shook his head, a complicated look on his face. Clang! The lightning that filled the sky intertwined and collided, bursting into dazzling sparks. There seemed to be lightning in Chu Hen's eyes as he looked at Yang Zongxiao in the sky with a slight hint of provocation. It seems like the 41st on the wind cloud list is only SOS. So Yang Zongxiao's eyes turned cold, and he responded with a disdainful sneer. People who are too arrogant usually die early. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Zongxiao clenched his 5 fingers, and a circle of spiral-shaped green water immediately surrounded his arm from the bottom of his shoulder. Spiral pillar! Buzz, a powerful wave of air spread out. Yang Zongxiao's palm force increased, and the green water ripple flowed toward Chu Hen like a rippling halo. The rippling halo rotated at an extraordinary speed, like a drill that pierced through the sky. A piercingly cold aura rapidly pressed down. Chu Hen's figure slightly leaned to the side, and his right hand grabbed at the air above the wind slasher platform below. Shing! With a sharp sword hum, the blue ran sword that had pierced through the stone platform in the secret chamber flew up, leaving behind a green afterimage in the air as it instantly returned to Chu Hen's palm. Sizzle, powerful and manic lightning quickly scurried up the blue ran sword's blade, glistening with blue light like a precious divine weapon. Without any unnecessary movements, Chu Hen directly rose with his sword in hand, setting off an aura as he met the spiral-shaped water pillar that drilled down from the sky. Bang! An azure pillar, a smear of blue light. The two extraordinary forces fiercely collided in the air. The instant the two collided, a powerful and mighty shockwave swept out. The space above and below the wind slasher platform trembled, and the sky swayed restlessly. The violent shockwave was comparable to the collision of meteorites, and the crowd below unconsciously retreated a few steps. Bang, bang, bang! Following that, a series of water pillars exploded one after another, from the beginning to the end. Everyone was shocked, only to see a blue shadow going against the flow, breaking through the layers of water pillars and directly attacking Yang Zongxiao. It's not that I'm too arrogant, but you really aren't much. Chu Hen unsheathed his sword, the blade flickering with electricity as it went straight for his opponent's throat. Yang Zongxiao's expression was cold, and he directly raised his palm to meet it. The show has only just begun. Bang! The two collided, and a dense golden ball of light condensed in Yang Zongxiao's palm. When the blue sky sword's tip collided with the ball of light, it felt as if it had touched a steel plate. Chu Hen was slightly astonished. In his heart, he was somewhat amazed. The metal-type power of the sacred body of 5 elements was not only extremely powerful in attack, but also very shocking in defense. In particular, the 5 types of power reinforced and restrained each other, and could be used together, with many variations. When fighting with his opponent, he probably couldn't let his guard down. How is it? Yang Zongxiao laughed sarcastically. Hua! Following that, the golden ball of light in his hand exploded with a dazzling divine light, and an abnormally restless power was born. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows raised slightly, and with a thought, an even stronger power of thunder and lightning darted up the sword, and quickly gathered at the tip of the sword. Immediately after, with a flick of his wrist, a beam of lightning sword chi shot out from the tip of the sword. Bang! The powerful impact immediately shook Yang Zongxiao's palm back. At the same time that the latter was shaken back, the golden ball of light suddenly exploded into countless illusory sword shadows. The sword light was like rain, covering the sky and earth as it whistled towards Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen didn't even bat an eyelid. He danced with his sword, and a sword pillar suddenly shot out. Bang bang! All the flying sword shadows shattered. Using the momentum of the sword pillar, Chu Hen once again chased after Yang Zongxiao. Just in time. Yang Zongxiao reached into the void with a flip of his hand, and as a scorching aura spread in all directions, a dry flame ignited in his palm. Chapter 1309. Bang! Boom! An intense battle erupted in the sky above the Wind Slasher platform. After Qiu Xingyi's defeat, someone from the martial sect who thought they were going to collapse stood out again. Towards Chu Hen, who had stepped forward bravely, the majority of the people present felt that he was a stranger. One was a nameless nobody. The other was a famous genius ranked on the excellence ranking. The two of them met and drew their swords on the Wind Slasher platform. The sword's shadow was like a rainbow, and the air rippled. The gorgeous dark blue lightning arcs collided with the power of the 5 elements, creating an exceptionally dazzling scene. While everyone was marveling at the stunning combination of the 5 different attributes, they couldn't help but be surprised by the sharpness displayed by the unfamiliar young figure. Although Yang Zongxiao's aura was majestic, and every round of attack was like a storm that shook the sky, Chu Hen did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. The blue sky sword in his hand was surrounded by lightning as though he was wielding a god's punishment ray. Not only did he perfectly defend against Yang Zongxiao's fierce attack, he could still calmly counterattack. Whether it was in terms of speed or strength, he was not inferior at all. Ancient Era Stage 9. On the martial sect's side, Wang Li's face was solemn. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest who were by her side were also shocked. When they left the 10,000 Bell City, Chu Hen was only at the Ancient Era Stage 7 in just a short period of time. His cultivation base had made another breakthrough again. "Where have all of you been these few days?" Wang Li glanced at Wu Yan, who was by her side. However, Wu Yan shook her head slightly, indicating that it was a long story. Although he could guess that Chu Hen had most likely consumed the Supreme Saint explosive blood pill to complete his breakthrough, in his opinion, no matter how powerful the Supreme Saint explosive blood pill was, his opponent was still an imminent Saint King stage powerhouse. Just a single pill was not enough to fight Yang Zongxiao. However, since Chu Hen dared to stand out, he must have a trump card that no one knew about. "What other trump card are you hiding?" Wu Yan muttered. "Heh, I really don't know where you get your confidence from." Pei Yi narrowed his eyes. Compared to the others, who were solemn, he was clearly much more relaxed. Pei Yi crossed his arms in front of him, and continued in a mocking tone. "As all of you saw earlier, no matter what, he's unable to break through Yang Zongxiao's 5-element shield. The outcome is already very obvious." Upon hearing this, the disciples of the martial sect, who were already feeling unconfident, immediately became dispirited. That might not be the case. However, just as the other party finished speaking, Wu Yan directly denied it. Without showing any weakness, she retorted, 3 days ago, Profound Yang Palace's Lu Minghong was killed by junior brother Chu Hen. What?" As soon as these words were spoken, the hearts of all the disciples of the martial sect trembled. "Lu Minghong was killed by Chu Hen?" Zhao Qingyi asked in shock. "Not bad, it took less than 10 moves," Wu Yan affirmed. "Hiss!" Everyone gasped. Even Pei Ye's face darkened immediately. Previously in the 10,000 Bell City, Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai had also witnessed the conflict between Chu Hen, Lu Wuyu, and Lu Minghong. At that time, Chu Hen even used one of Lu Minghong's arms as a wager. Initially, they thought that the matter would end there. They did not expect that Lu Minghong, who was ranked 49th on the Windcloud ranking, would be removed from the list the moment they entered the Chaos Devil world. Also, the corner of Wu Yan's eyes faintly narrowed. She raised her eyes to look at the young figure in the sky, whose sharpness was radiating in all directions. "Although I did not personally witness it, I can be certain that Qin Shui of the Heaven Condensing Pavilion has already lost his life to Junior Chu Hen. Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Wu Yan's words once again crashed into everyone's hearts like a giant rock. Even Qin Shouyi. Wang Li's eyes were wide open as he clenched his fists. Is this true? Basically, I can confirm it, Wu Yan replied with a nod. According to the situation that day, there must have been a bloody battle when Chu Hen was surrounded and chased by so many powerhouses. When Wu Yan left the ancient city to look for Chu Hen, she had also passed by the battlefield that day. Based on the remains of the battlefield, she could tell that there were not many people who survived. Coupled with her understanding of Qin Shouyi's blood shaman curse, Wu Yan was certain that Qin Shouyi had been killed by Chu Hen. Otherwise, Chu Hen would not have had the time to refine the subsequent medicinal efficacy of the Supreme Saint explosive blood pill. The people from the martial sect were a little dazed when they heard that Wu Yan had killed 2 geniuses on the wind cloud ranking consecutively. Even Qiu Xingyi could not help but clench his fists tightly as he looked at the sky with a complicated gaze. Golden flame slash. Heavenly light blade. Boom. The giant golden blade that was covered in crimson flames and the trident that was formed from thousands of tribulation lightning were like 2 divine rays that clashed in the sky. The vast and surging light pillar exploded in the sky and tore the sky apart. The violent and ferocious power was comparable to the collision of lightning, almost shattering the space. The powerful chi wave wreaked havoc in the sky and whistled in all directions. The pupils of the people below shrank again and again as they faintly trembled. This power is really terrifying. That person has not been defeated yet. What a surprise. Yes, the previous moves were all probing moves. I reckon he will become serious later on. Bang! A violent circle of light exploded in the sky. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, 2 swift and fierce figures quickly flew backwards. Yang Zongxiao frowned slightly as he stared coldly at Chu Hen's calm and indifferent face. I have to admit that I have underestimated your strength. Then, I'm afraid I will have to say goodbye next. Yang Zongxiao clasped his palms together and circles of cyan ripples of light immediately erupted from his body. Chaotic mist. Whoosh! A wave of cool water vapor spread between heaven and earth. In the next instant, a hazy white mist actually rose up and quickly occupied the entire wind slasher platform. The white mist became denser and denser, and the speed at which it spread was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the area within a radius of several dozen li became a vast white blind area. In the mist, the crowd could not even see the shadows of the 2 people in the sky. Even the people beside them could only vaguely see their silhouette. What a powerful concealment technique. I can't sense Yang Zongxiao's aura at all. Yes, now that surnamed Chu has completely fallen into our control. In the white mist, Chu Hen still had a calm expression on his face. Even though he was surrounded by a vast white field of vision, he did not feel the slightest bit flustered because he could not see his opponent's position. Suddenly, a slight airflow moved and attacked from the left. The blue sky sword in Chu Hen's hand shot out like lightning, but it slashed towards the right. Ding! A circle of sword chi flew out and sparks flew everywhere. In the mist, an afterimage was immediately forced back. The sword's momentum did not weaken. Chu Hen followed up and with a flick of his wrist, dozens of cold lights whizzed out. Along with several overlapping sounds, the opponent once again hid in the mist. Humph! The corner of Chu Hen's mouth rose slightly, and a hint of frivolity appeared. This move is useless against me. It's too early for you to be happy. A cold voice came from all directions. Accompanied by a rustling sound, another rapid attack came from behind Chu Hen. Chu Hen still did not care about what was behind him, and faced the sword directly in front of him. Bang! The sword's shadow was like light, extremely swift and fierce. Along with the rolling mist, Yang Zongxiao, who was hiding in the dark, was once again blocked. Obviously, this was a diversion tactic. Yang Zhongxiao was everywhere in the mist like a ghost, changing unpredictably. For anyone, it was impossible to guard against him. But in front of Chu Hen, this concealment technique was useless. Chu Hen's eyes shone with purple light. Even though Yang Zhongxiao had merged with the mist, he could not escape the tracking of this pair of demonic eyes.